That's exactly what that's for them. Oh, that's right, that's right.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Portsmouth City Council meeting for Monday, March 7th, here in the Eileen Dondero Foley Council Chambers. I'd like to call the meeting to order, welcome everyone here, and welcome our viewers on TV. And at this time, I'll ask the Deputy City Clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Farini.
Here.
Assistant Mayor Nobeline Clayburgh.
Here.
Councilor Lister.
Here.
Councilor Hegemonic.
Here.
Councilor Spear.
Here.
Councilor Dwyer.
Here.
Councilor Coviello.
Here.
Councilor Kennedy is absent. And Councilor Smith.
Here.
8 present, Your Honor.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask the Assistant Mayor to lead us in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This time, we have a proclamation. It is Music in Our Schools Month, and I'm going to ask if Councilor Spear would be kind enough to read the proclamation. And do we have anyone here from the music department to receive the proclamation? If we don't, that's okay. What we do, Mr. Cirillo, I didn't see out there. If you want to say a few words after he reads the proclamation, you'd be most welcome to do so. All right, Councilor Spear.
Thank you. Whereas the month of March is designated as Music in Our Schools Month by the Music Educators National Conference, with this year's theme being Music Lasts a Lifetime, and whereas music and the other arts significantly enhance the morale and quality of the school environment, and whereas the study of music contributes to young people's development through heightened skills in listening, reading, self-expression, and creativity, and whereas music education in the Portsmouth Public Schools includes a broad range of types of music and active musical experiences for all students, and whereas the City of Portsmouth is enormously proud of the many musical achievements at the local, state, regional, and national level of our elementary, middle, and high school students and staff. Now, therefore, I, Thomas G. Farini, Mayor of the City of Portsmouth, on behalf of the members of the City Council and the citizens of Portsmouth, do hereby proclaim the month of March 2011 as Music in Our Schools Month, focusing on this year's theme of Music Lasts a Lifetime, and urge all citizens to support the purposes and practice of music education while encouraging students, teachers, parents, and all citizens to participate and recognize the importance of music education programs in our schools.
Thank you. You have the floor, Mr. Cirillo.
Just a quick note. Thank you, everyone in Portsmouth and all of this body for the support you give the arts. Most of you have been directly connected to this. Mayor himself, a former member of the Portsmouth High School Clipper Band, Dr. Lister and Ms. Clayburgh. It's not that funny. It's a big thing. And the support you've given us over the years. The music program is truly a part of the fabric of the city. Anywhere, any event you go to, on Memorial Day, Veterans Day, you'll see an ensemble there singing on Martin Luther King Day. And we are rich in history, and the music is part of that history. So we celebrate with that students, and it's really one of those living education things that goes on. I mean, it's with them, and it does last a lifetime, as you know. We even had Mr. Farini pull out his trombone this year just to prove that. So thank you for all of your support. There's a couple of big things going on if you'd like to attend. The middle school has their Music in Our School Month concert Wednesday the 16th at 7 p.m. at Portsmouth High School. And the following week on the 23rd is something you should all attend. It's the high school music department's chocolate extravaganza. Just what you'd like. You could eat as much chocolate as you'd like and listen to great music nonstop from 6 o'clock to 8:30. And this showcases the students' individual talents. It's not the band or the choir, but it's ensembles the students put together and demonstrate their talent. So if you haven't tried it, it's at the Portsmouth High School cafeteria on the 23rd. As much as those are a couple of the main events, there are always things going on with music. The percussion ensemble was in Connecticut last weekend. The Color Guard was in Massachusetts. The choir is singing at the Music Hall on the 24th for a chamber concert. So thank you very much for your support, and keep supporting us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and on behalf of the community, we thank the students, the parents, the teachers, and everybody who works so hard at bringing us the fine musical programming that we have. Thanks again.
Do I get that certificate?
I have this proclamation for you.
Okay, thank you.
You can put it next to the previous proclamations that have been provided. There you go. Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care,
Good
Steve.
to see you, Steve.
We now move on to the acceptance of the minutes. We have one set of minutes before us this evening. They are the minutes from the meeting of February 22nd, 2011. We have a motion with respect to the minutes.
So move to accept?
Motion to accept?
Second.
We have a second. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. That is unanimous. We now turn to the public comment session. In the public comment session, you have 3 minutes to speak on the subject of your choice. All you need to do is identify yourself and your address. At 2 minutes and 30 seconds, the city attorney will raise a sign that indicates you have 30 seconds remaining. When you see "thank you," that means that the additional 30 seconds is up. I will remind you that there are 2 items on for public hearing, not to be confused with public comment. This evening, one is the capital improvement plan, and the other is regarding the potential youth recreation facility. So those public hearings are going to be on for this evening, and if you have remarks to make in those regards, that's something to consider as well. So with no further ado, we'll go with the public comment, open the public comment session, and ask our first speaker to come forward, Lori Hebert.
Good evening. I own the property at 8 Edgewood Road. I'm here tonight because I'm a little bit confused and outraged by this proposal for the nearly $2 million appropriation for a new youth recreation center. Any money that is spent...
Ma'am, I hate to interrupt you, but I'm going to certainly
You
allow
can't hear.
you to proceed. But what I just said is that we do have a public hearing this evening on the youth facility,
Yes.
at which time you could speak, for example, more than 3 minutes if you so desired. The public comment session of the meeting is typically for items that are not on for a public hearing.
So you would prefer...
So if you want to continue, please go ahead, but you're going to get another bite at the apple if you want it anyway. And there are other individuals, I think I see a number of individuals who are here with respect to the youth rec facility. I would just ask that you consider speaking during the public hearing as opposed to the public comment session.
Then I shall do so. Thank
And you get more of an opportunity to speak, so I don't want to shortchange you in that regard. Okay, and I'll just look out there. Those of you, there's probably 6 of you on here who have put down the youth rec facility. If you want to come up and speak now and use your 3 minutes now, that would be fine. But if not, I would ask that you hold your remarks and we'll just go on to the next speaker, which would be Bill St. Laurent and the Meeting House Hill lease.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Bill St. Laurent, 253 Colonial Drive. On the agenda tonight, you have a proposal for the lease of the South Meeting House for the Portsmouth Public Media Group, which consists of the new public access channel that is part of this program. I'm just a little concerned with the fact that the monies that are being used, there was passed by the council, there was a proposal that the monies that the Comcast takes out, and I forgot the name for it, I'm sorry, but set aside money in the bill, that $350,000 of it end up going into the general fund, and then anything other than that would be going to this public media group to run this public access channel. My concern with the lease of the South Meeting House is, I know in the Children's Museum there, that was an expensive proposition for them to take care of that building. to heat and do whatever need be in that. And I'm just a little concerned that this group is going to need a lot of extra money just to use this building. And I'm just afraid they're going to come back to the taxpayer. They're already taken that extra money of the $350,000 that the city was getting, and we've already given them, I believe, $30,000 at one time as a setup money. But I just am concerned in leasing that particular building. It seems like it's an expensive proposition, and I'm not sure whether this group can really financially handle this. So I would be concerned about letting them lease this building. It's a big building. The tower, I'm sure in time, will need work. It's a big building to paint. I know we did a lot of work. The city spent a lot of money and a lot of work in getting the building set up. But I would be concerned. I would hope that the council would be a little concerned about leasing this building to this group, who looks like they may need a lot of money in running their public access channel. Thank you.
Thank you. The only other speaker on here, and if I've left anyone out, please forgive me and just, show of hands and come on up, but we do have one other speaker who is not otherwise interested, apparently, in speaking on the youth recreation facility, and that would be Richard Gamester regarding the budget shortfall, our fire commissioner. Richard Gamester.
From 12 to 2. How about that, huh? Good evening, Mayor Farini, members of the City Council, City Manager Bahinko. My name is Richard Gamester, 176 Thaxter Road, and I am the chairman of the Portsmouth Fire Commission. As the City Council may now be aware that on March 3rd, the Fire Department reduced its minimum shift staffing from 13 to 12 in response to a projected budget shortfall for the fiscal year ending 2011. That shortfall being $100,000 approximately. The shortfall is not due to overspending or mismanagement. It is due to the fire department budget being underfunded through the last year's budget process. As you will recall, the fire department for 2 consecutive years met the 0% budget increase recommended by the City Council. The fire department, in fact, came in at 0 for fiscal year 2011, and at the end of the process, we were asked to reduce it by 1.47%, giving us negative minus 1.46% for the 2010 appropriation. Today's projected shortfall was entirely predictable, as the fire department has continued to provide the same exemplary service when responding to and mitigating any fire hazmat emergency medical issues that they are called to be at. The reduced shift staffing results in one of the city's 2 primary ambulances being taken out of service. That would be Ambulance 2, and it has been out of service for much of the time since March 3rd, and will continue to be taken out of service whenever the shift staffing falls below 13 personnel on duty. The result of one ambulance will be that one ambulance will cover the entire city. As the department responds to over 3,000 medical aid requests annually, this will result in Ambulance 1 being tied up most of the time and mutual aid ambulances being called. Now, if they're available, and they would be available to cover the rest of the city, the department can only bill, and I apologize for speaking about medical emergencies and money at the same time, but it's something we can bill for, so we do. We can only bill for EMF services if we transport the patient. Mutual aid ambulances that respond and transport the patient have the billing rights, and our revenues therefore would decrease by approximately 40%, or about $110,000. The Fire Commission calls this undesirable situation to your attention so that you have a full understanding of what happens when essential city functions such as fire and rescue are underfunded. The Fire Department, in good faith, has met the budget mandates issued by the City Council, and now we ask that the City Council fulfill its long-standing promise to provide the supplemental appropriation of approximately $100,000 for the year 2011 to ensure that fire department's 3 stations are adequately staffed and that we can continue to have 2 primary ambulances. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, it appears that we have no more. We have a speaker. We have speakers. Please step up and I'd like you to state your name. We want to make sure that we get it for the record.
City Council, my name is Steve Gagnon, and this is my son, and we are going to talk about the youth gymnasium because my boy has to go to bed soon, and I live at 29 Hillside Drive, and I think he might want to say something himself, so. Can you hear me?
I think.
Is that working?
There you go.
There we go.
Hi, my name is Luke, and I would like to say I'm not just saying this for me, but I'm saying this for all my friends too. We all like to have a gym to play basketball at, and we would really like to have one to play at. Thank you.
I don't think I'll say anything more.
They can be more succinct than adults. Thank you very much.
I know when to stop.
That's right. Okay, any more speakers at this point in the meeting? Sure, please come forward.
Hi, Mary Maurer, 65 Rogers Street. I also need to talk about the youth center, rec center now, just because I couldn't get a babysitter tonight. My husband has hockey. So I just want to, I've been to many of the meetings planning from stage 1 for the past 6-7 years in reference to middle school. And every time I always bring this up, having been associated to 65 Rogers Street since 1991, moved to another neighborhood for the past 6 years, just moved back to 65 Rogers Street in November. Just want to keep talking about the parking. It is, like just now I counted the cars as I came over here, and there's like 30 in front of the middle school and about 50 over by the library, and it's 7 o'clock at night. So I'm not opposed at all to the rec center. I just want everyone to remember about the parking. Just remember daytime, if it's like the Connie Bean, you have offices, you have classes during the day. So just keep thinking, where is everyone going to go? With the snow this year, I know it was a banner year in the past 7 years or so, but there was times Rogers Street was a one-way, and people were just stuck, and buses were stuck. So parking, and that's all I'm saying, parking. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers at this time for public comment session? If there are none, and I see no one rising, I will end the public comment session, and we will move on to our public hearings. So that you know, there are 2 on the agenda for this evening. We have presentations in both cases prior to the public hearing. The first is regarding the capital improvement. I'm sorry, I think I have it backwards. They're both youth recreation. The capital improvement plan is the second item on the agenda. So those of you that are here to speak on the youth rec facility are going to be able to see that presentation and then make your comments. The 2 items before us are a resolution appropriating the sum of $512,700.58 from the premium the city received from the sale of its $17,300,000 general obligation capital improvement bonds for expenses relating to the construction of a youth recreation facility. The second item is a resolution authorizing a supplemental appropriation from undesignated fund balance for necessary expenditures for the construction of a youth recreation facility. The City Council determined that the sum of $1,800,000 be appropriated to pay a portion of the cost of the construction of the youth recreational facility, and we're going to have a presentation in that regard. John?
Thank you, Your Honor. What I'd like to do is to have Russ Wilson, along with John Stokel, come forward and do a presentation regarding the proposed youth recreation facility. This is a similar presentation that the City Council saw and others at its work session a few weeks ago. As part of the presentation, I will talk about the proposed funding options as well.
Thank you very much, City Manager Bahenko. Tonight's presentation will have three aspects to it. Why build a new youth recreation facility, which I will do most of that. What is the youth recreation facility design? The principal of the middle school, Principal John Stokel, will take that section. And what is the proposed funding option? City Manager Bohenko will take that section. Why build a new recreation facility? Well, a lot of it starts out with the condition of our current facilities, the Connie Bean Center, the indoor pool, and the Greenleaf Recreation Center. One of the great things the City Council did was authorize the comprehensive recreation needs study. Some of the most noted recreation authorities in the country spent a great deal of time in the City of Portsmouth looking at our facilities and our programs and gave us a roadmap to the future. We had hundreds of people at public input sessions and close to 150 comments on the city website talking about our facilities and infrastructure. The needs study was completed in 2010, and the general findings were that it's very inefficient to run separate standalone recreation facilities, and consolidation of existing facilities is key to the future. And we've already started some of this project, working with the SIP organization to transfer pool management, hopefully at the end of the year, and also transferring operational and financial responsibilities for the Greenleaf Recreation Center to the Portsmouth Housing Authority. The discussion points for replacement of the Connie Bean Center. It has very poor recreational value. We currently only use the first floor, which is about 37% of the building. That consists of one undersized, outdated gymnasium, office space, and restrooms. It's a standalone facility, very inefficient, and expensive system upgrades would be required, as well as a large capital investment for the long-term usage. And that would still leave no solution for the undersized gym and limited parking. Throughout the study, the recreation center in downtown was a strong recurring public preference. Now, this is an excerpt right from the study of the facility about the Connie Bean Center. The facility was not originally designed as an indoor recreation center, and due to its age and structural configuration, there is no real opportunity for renovation for significant recreational use. Any renovation of the facility for recreation purposes would be cost prohibitive. And I'll give you a brief tour of the facility. This is the original plaque as you go into the facility. You can see it was built in 1916, so it's almost 100 years old. The consultants were amazed that we were still trying to run recreation programs out of a 100-year-old facility. A few years ago, the fire department and inspection department closed the basement and the upper floors to the public use due to life safety code issues, including inadequate fire exits from the upper floors and basements. Now, these are ladders that go from the top floors. I don't know if you can see it real clear, but the ladders only go halfway down, obviously, so people can't climb up. But you can imagine trying to get out down these ladders. Since then, we have only been operating recreation activities on the first floor. Parking is also limited with only 12 designated spaces for the facility, which are reserved for staff and officials. The first floor consists of an undersized gym, a lobby, 2 offices, and a restroom. This is the lobby and the restrooms as you go in the main door. This is the whole first floor, picture taken from the middle of the gym. And you notice the entrance to the gym. I said this at the last presentation. The only way you can get into the gym is to walk across the court. Those black lines are the lines of the court. So in order to get to the gym and the bleachers, you have to walk across the court in the middle of a game. This is a 68-foot gym with low ceilings with no runoff at the end of the gym. A regulation court is 85 feet long with usually about 6, 8, 10 feet at the end. So it's usually a regulation court about 100 feet long. Ours is 68 with about a foot at each end, so let's call it 70. There's one regulation-sized gym in the city. That's in Portsmouth High School, built about 50 years ago. And for those of you, most of you all been there, it's a beautiful gym. It just shows you what you can do. If you build a gym right, 50 years later, that building still looks like it was built a few years ago. This is the 1 foot at the end of the court I was just referencing, and then you hit a padded brick wall. Is this a liability? Of course it is. A few weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, 6 weeks ago, one of our high school players ran into that after running down the length of a court and broke his leg when he hit the wall. Our children certainly deserve better than a 68-foot court. We need a 100-foot court. These are the emergency doors that lead outside on the same end of the court. You can see people running off. If they hit the crash bars, they end up outside of the building. These are the bleachers. As you can see, if you're sitting in the front row, you're practically standing on the court, Anybody coming onto the bleachers has to walk along the court and then make their way up the bleachers. The project direction of the Recreation Needs Study. To develop a partnership with a separate agency to operate the Greenleaf Recreation Center. We've already done that. And to replace the Connie Bean Center with a new gym as part of the new middle school project, enhancing the Recreation Department, School Department collaboration already in place. And most of you know the collaboration that we have with the high school already. What many of you don't know is the collaboration we've had with the middle school for 20, 25 years. We work very closely with them in a number of projects and programs, and we hope to continue that. The opportunity to replace the Connie Bean Center, we would create a youth recreation center to include the rec department gym and office as part of the middle school renovation project. The building would have a modern regulation-sized gym with daytime availability for middle school usage and afternoon, evening, weekend, and holiday use for the community as a recreation center, doubling the current use of the Connie Bean Center. Right now, during the day, the Connie Bean Center is not being used. The middle school would use this new gym for their PE classes, and Principal Stoker will talk a little bit about that in the future. And reciprocally, we would use their facility nights, weekends, and holidays where it's not being used now. Many times I've heard over the years where city councils have said, wouldn't it be great if the city could use the schools could use the city facilities. This is exactly what we're going to be doing, getting maximum use out of these facilities. The proposed addition is a gym, a lobby, and office space. There are no meeting rooms, exercise rooms, weight rooms, game rooms, pools, just one single gymnasium, lobby, and office space. Often we hear about that this is next to the middle school. No, it's part of the addition to it, and it's not a whole youth recreation center. It's just a gym, office, and a lobby. We will have one activity going on at a time in our gym, and there would be one next door in the middle school gym. Now, these are the current schedules of all the gyms in the city. As you see, the Connie Bean Center is used 7 days a week. We don't use this facility until schools are out of school. So 2 o'clock would be the earliest we would open it up at the middle school. No activities start until at least 4 o'clock. I know there's been questions and concerns about traffic and parking and things like that. No one comes to this facility for a game at the very earliest until 4 o'clock. So we generate no traffic during the day at all. The middle school kids would go directly, obviously, from the end of the school into the gym. And as the other kids get out of school, if they wanted to come down from the elementary schools, they would come down and get dropped off. So we would generate no traffic and no games until at least 4 o'clock. As you can see, most of the other gyms in the city are actively used all during the week. We get asked all the time, can we use some of the other elementary school gyms? First of all, they're all so small, they really can't be used for anything other than what they're used from now, which is elementary school basketball practice and things like that. Most of them are combination cafeterias and gymnasiums. Some of them have stages on the end. I can go through a whole litany of things, issues with the elementary school gyms and things like that, but you get my point. The Portsmouth Middle School gym, actively used again every day except Sunday. If this proposal goes through, we would open that up on Sunday so the kids would have another opportunity to use an extra gym in the city. The efficiencies that we talk about with staffing, utilities, longer use of facilities, custodial maintenance, joint use, there's just a number of things that we can do to, with operational efficiencies. The program benefits, significant improvement in recreational value of the existing services provided at the Connie Bean Center. The programming will remain in the downtown. Recreational use would be 7 days a week, after school, nights, weekends, and holidays. School year vacations in summer would continue. The summer programs would have access to gyms and nearby athletic fields at the middle school, and the middle school students would have seamless access to school programming after the middle school. Program benefits for the middle school.
Good evening, John Stokel, middle school principal. This first slide talks about the possibilities for the enhancements to the present middle school program with that availability of a second gym. With one gymnasium, we're actually forced to run what I call a full activity for PE and then a mini activity, because 1/3 of the gymnasium is used for that second activity. So it really can't be a full PE activity. But the state will only reimburse for one gymnasium in the middle school. This would give us the possibility of running 2 full activities during our PE classes. Because typically we have 3 running at any given time, 2 PE classes and 1 health class. We'd also be able to offer more intramural programs after school with the second gymnasium. The rec department would also be able to run programs after school and take advantage of the late bus, which already exists. So there's some things that are already in the budget, which would continue in the budget, but now the rec department would also be able to take advantage of that. There'd be also more space for our merit club activities in the morning, and it would give us more space for our academic team activities. About a year ago, the council and board set a committee to look at efficiencies. This project ties into the exact efficiencies that that committee was looking at. First of all, we'd be able to expand the athletic director's duties to middle school and elementary schools. That's something which started a few years ago at the high school level. We would now be able to expand that. This would be a definite efficient use of custodial and maintenance staff. If you were to build a standalone building, then of course you're going to need additional custodial staff. Here we'd be able to take advantage of the existing custodial and maintenance staff at the middle school at minimal cost. And again, this is not a one-shot savings. This is an annual savings to the taxpayer. We'd also be sharing room space. If you built a separate facility, you're going to need to build changing rooms, bathroom facilities, a room for the different committees to meet and for registrations. You would not have to duplicate that because the rec department would use the same exact facilities which will already exist in the middle school project. And of course, there's also going to be improved efficiency cost, reduced maintenance cost as compared to the existing Connie Bean building. So it really does fit in exactly to what the council and board were looking at when they formed that efficiencies committee. How can we be more efficient, not duplicate spaces and duplicate services, but again, build on this strong partnership which already exists with the school department and the rec department.
Recreation needs study concluded with 3 options: to replace the Connie Bean Center at the middle school location and to discontinue recreational use at the Greenleaf, which we've already done the latter part, to build a new standalone youth recreation center at a location to be determined outside of town. And you can see the expenses incrementally go up as we talk about these different facilities. Or to build a combined youth adult aquatic recreation center at a location to be determined. Ultimately, we would love that. Recreation and Department and the Recreation Board realize the economic times that we live in, and we highly recommend the most inexpensive, cost-effective, cost-efficient, energy-efficient, most utilized option of the 3, which would be to add a second gymnasium to the middle school renovation project to be used as a youth recreation center for the Portsmouth Recreation Department. Mr. Stokel?
These next slides will actually show you the actual footprint of what we're looking at. If you look at this one section right here, this actually is the Youth Recreation Center. It is tied right into the middle school facility. It's not a standalone building. So, of course, there's going to be some economies of scale there by just adding it on to that present gymnasium. Here you'll see an aerial view. This large rectangular box here actually would be both the middle and recreation department gymnasiums. So you're really putting 2 gymnasiums into one large space. Here you'll see a view from Parrott Ave. This would be the separate entrance for the Youth Recreation Center. Therefore, it could be used nights, weekends, during school vacations, but at the same time you can close off the remainder of the facility for safety regulations and so on. So there's its own separate entrance. Here you'll see a close-up view, again with that separate entrance, so that the facility can be used nights and weekends and so on by the rec department, but it also opens up both gymnasiums for the recreation department. So they can run more than one program on weekends for the youth of our city. Again, it's this one rectangular piece here, which is actually the Youth Recreation Center. It's a gymnasium with office space and storage space. Some folks have said, well, you're not replacing the Connie Bean Center. Well, you actually will be, because you'll be using a lot of the facilities which will already exist in the middle school, such as, again, the changing rooms, bathroom facilities, areas for conference rooms and so on, and even looking down the line at the possibility of using the student commons, because the way that the architects have set this up, we'll be able to close off the rest of the building so that the recreation department can use those facilities, again, nights, weekends, holidays, and school vacations. Here you'll see the two regulation-sized gymnasiums, and now we'll turn it over to the city manager on the funding options.
Thank you, Mr. Stokel. The funding options that you have before you are outlined in two resolutions, and the first resolution deals with a proposal to fund the facility with what is known as bond premium proceeds. That's in the amount of $512,700.58. Bond premium proceeds were received from the sale of the original bonds from the general obligation bonds that we sold in May of 2010. What that basically means is that because of our bond rating, because of the desirability of our bonds, investors wanted our bonds. So what they did, not only did we get a low interest rate, in order for them to win the bid to get our bonds, they basically gave us $512,000 over and above what they did for the interest rate. So that money, in accordance with state statute, has to be reappropriated for a capital project similar in a number of useful life years, 20 years and the like, for a project. It cannot be used to pay down debt. It's not allowed to be used to pay down debt because it basically is money that should be used for a capital program. And again, this is in accordance with state statutes. The next part is a resolution that would authorize a supplemental appropriation from our, what we call undesignated fund balance for the expenditures, the remaining expenditures of $1.8 million. Presently, the city has approximately $10 million in its undesignated fund balance, or about 12% of our budget. Our ordinance that we have in place and what our rating agencies, Moody's and Standard & Poor's, have indicated is that we should keep between 5 and 10% in fund balance, undesignated fund balance. Presently, that number, as I said, is about 12%. By using the $1.8 million, it would bring down our fund balance to about $8.3 million, or about 10% of our budget. Now, the important thing to remember here is use of our undesignated fund balance should probably be done prudently, and it should be done for things that are non-reoccurring. It shouldn't be done for operational reasons. It should be done for capital projects that are non-reoccurring, so that you do not use that for an operating expense, because you'll have that same operating expense next year and you have to make that up. The idea is to take that money and to use it for a capital project, like I said, for projects such as this that would be non-reoccurring. So using both those funding options, we would not have to go into any general taxation. Also, as part of the capital plan that you'll be seeing later on, one of the goals that we had for this capital plan for fiscal year 12 was to not have any new bonding in the general fund. We wanted to not have any new additional bonding for general fund items. So this would accomplish that as well. So the idea would be to use the $512,700 from the bond premium, which would not affect our tax rate, and use the $1,800,000 from our undesignated fund balance. That would be a non-recurring expense, and something that our rating agencies would be very satisfied to see us using that way. I might remind you, the reason that we did get the $512,000 in bond premium is because we have a AA+ rated bond rating. Our bonds are very desirable, and so that is a benefit of having a solid fund balance. The fund balance, like I said, has risen above 10% to 12%, and again, the recommendation is to use, if you're going to use fund balance, use it for non-reoccurring expenses. That's the proposal, Your Honor, and I would turn it back to you for comments by the public.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John Stokel, and thank you, Russ Wilson, and everyone else who has participated in preparing this. At this time, I would open the public hearing, and I will just state the rules so that you can recall that we typically call now one opportunity for people to speak. You may speak as long as you wish. There is no time limit. I would request that you keep your remarks based upon or grounded in the object of the public hearing and not speak regarding other matters. Please be mindful of your co-speakers who will also be looking forward to speaking here this evening. And my suggestion would be that that you try to line up so that there isn't time for someone to get up, walk back, and then we can move the public hearing along as promptly as we can. So if you line up to a point, that would be helpful. As long as there's 2 or 3 people ready to go, that means that it proceeds in a more orderly fashion, because we do have the capital improvement plan public hearing before us this evening as well, and a presentation in that regard. So without any further comment, I will now open the public hearing regarding this matter. Please proceed. State your name and address for the record.
Mayor Farini, members of the council, my name is Charlie Griffin. I live at 210 Hillside Drive. I feel the proposal to appropriate $1.8 million to the undesignated fund balance for this new recreational facility is really not defensible, in light of the message that all the municipal departments have received to submit level-funded budgets, which necessitates elimination of several positions, and Commissioner Gamester spoke to that tonight as it impacts the fire department. I think this is a classic case where perception will become reality. And the perception will be that if the city has an extra $1.8 million to spend on a new recreational facility, then why doesn't it have sufficient funds to fully fund all the budget requests? And I understand the technical considerations here, that this is money that can only be used for capital improvements and that the city already has it on hand. But nonetheless, I feel that by approving this appropriation, you'll be sending a mixed message, and you'll be underfunding your ability to persuade the public that a level-funded budget is what's best for the city. We are still in difficult economic times, perhaps not as severely here in Portsmouth as other cities in the state, but you see the ripple effect of that with the increase in the county budget, with the governor saying he's pulling the state contribution towards retirement. And particularly, as I see it, if we are asking some people to participate in their sacrifice by losing their positions, then it seems to me as a city we can say, we acknowledge that sacrifice and we're willing to share in it by getting by with our existing facilities, even though they may be inadequate, for some future period of time until the economy turns around. So I'm not saying don't do this, but I'm saying I don't think the climate is appropriate to do it now, and I think by voting to do it now, you're going to undercut your ability in a month from now when you start holding public hearings on the budget to convince the public that your proposal for level-funded budgets really made sense. So I would urge you not to approve the appropriation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Good evening, John Bouchard, 150 FW Hartford Drive. I'm here tonight to ask you to support the budget for the Youth Recreation Center. Not only do I think a lot of us want to see this, but it is a need for this city. We have to move forward with it. I don't think there's a lot of options out there of what we have today that we can move forward with in the cost to upgrade the Connie Bean. So with that, I ask you to support it because it definitely is a need for the city that we need to move forward with, and it's a great opportunity to combine it with a new middle school. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
My name is Christine Davidson. I live at 1275 Maplewood Avenue. And I'm here to say that I think it's very foolish for us to consider this at the location that we're talking about, next to the middle school. I don't know how many people frequent the library as much as I do, but I know that night and day I've gone to that library and have been unable to find a parking place in the library parking lot. And so I've had to park on the street. And if there's something going on at the middle school and the library at the same time, maybe at Wentworth Connections as well, there's hardly any space on the street. It's a real struggle. And sometimes you have to go practically to Junkins Avenue before you finally find a parking place. So I think that I'm not sure that I agree with the idea of having a recreational facility because of the money. I don't think the city can really afford it. But apart from that, there's just the practical consideration of parking, of finding a parking place. And I can't imagine that unless we can find some way to have an underground or underwater parking garage or some kind of two-tier thing that would work out where some parking is already. I just don't think this is practical at all, so I ask you not to consider this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Patrick Ellis, 235 McKinley Road. I think I'd like you to vote in support of the measure to build the youth recreation facility. A couple key items here. There's been a general loss of gymnasium space in the city over the last 15 years or so. We should remember that there was, although not an adequate facility, but right there at the Armory building, there was a gymnasium before the library was built. This is not the first time that a recreational facility has been utilized on Parrott Avenue. When I was on the board, school board 2 years ago, we tried very hard to further integrate the recreation director and the athletic director for the middle school program. Russ already does that for the high school. We saw it as an opportunity to find some cost savings, but what we're essentially told is because they don't have people on site, they couldn't do it. This is an opportunity that if we build a new recreation facility somewhere else, we may not be able to have that opportunity to integrate the middle school athletic director with the recreation department. That's real cost savings that occur right away. With regards to parking, when the city made the decision to renovate and expand the middle school at Parrott Ave, everyone knew that parking was an issue. That was one of the reasons that people weren't comfortable with the middle school being redeveloped where it is. We've made that decision. Nothing fundamentally is changing by putting the youth recreation facility at Parrott Ave. It's not going to be on top of the middle school in that there won't be recreation programs running during the day. It'll be run at night when there's not as much going on Parrott Ave to begin with. I will say that I am certain that some studies will look at what to do with parking, and one of the things that I would hope you look at is that Richards Avenue is a bit of a mess. And I'm not originally from the city. I've been here for about 15 years, but in my mind, I have no comprehension why that's not a one-way street. You can't have two cars passing on it. As you do look to figure out transportation dynamics with this new facility, I hope that you'll consider converting Richards into a one-way road. Lastly, I just say that there's no time like the present for something like this. This is an identified need. We know we need to do this eventually. By doing it now, we don't have to pay a contractor to remobilize. We don't have to pay an architect in the future to finish this design. The work is already underway in the sense of there's an architect that's designing it. We're looking for a contractor. This is going to be a cheaper structure to build today by tagging it along with the middle school project than it ever would be even if we were to do the exact same thing at Parrott Avenue 5 years from now, when we'd have to hire a new architect and hire a new contractor to do the work. So I think although it's a little uncomfortable to have to spend this extra money now, in my mind, it is in the interest of the city to do this now. It's going to save us money. And it's been identified as a need. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Members of the City Council, Your Honor, I'm Harold Whitehouse of 58 Humphreys Court. At first, when I heard about this project, I didn't take it seriously. But then as time went on, and I heard that there have been some engineering studies and some money spent, and it was moving along, I thought I'd get involved. I attended the work session on May 9th between the City Council, the JBC, the Rec Board, the engineers, the architects, and some heads of the departments. I took notes, and after the notes, I looked at my notes, and something stood right out at me. And I wrote beside the notes, it must be the quote of the century. And I'm going to ask you, would you also class this as the quote of the century? Somebody was asked after the meeting, what about the traffic and parking issue? And the quote was, we do not see it as an issue at this time. We will address it later. I'm going to repeat that. We do not see it as an issue at this time. We'll address it later. The parking, I'm not talking about the parking inside the fenced area where the middle school is going to be built. I'm talking about Parrott Avenue. You've got Leary Field, you've got the Little League field, you've got 500 plus students going and coming at the middle school, you've got 11 buses going and coming twice a day at the middle school, you've got the courthouse parking, you've got the senior center parking, you've got the overflow from the Parrott Avenue parking on Parrott Avenue. You know, is anybody concerned about what could happen when a little child darts in back of a car, when the Little League is going on or something big is going on at Leary Field? Does anybody have some concern of adding more people, especially students and children in that area, trying to shoehorn another project such as a youth rec center beside the middle school project? It's not a very good idea. And I say to you, think it over. Now, in reference to taking $1,800,000 from the undesignated fund balance, I respect my city manager. You know I do, John, and you're very professional. But I think it's a wrong move. I really do. The $10 million we have could be wiped out in a few hours if we had a catastrophic type weather-related incident. Say a earthquake came down the fault from Mount Wash, the White Mountains, and came down and went to sea at the seacoast. We're sitting on a fault. This building itself is on a fault built on ledge. $10 million to replace this council chambers or any part of this building would be wiped out. Suppose a hurricane, a tremendous hurricane came up the coast and hovered off the coast and gained speed and came across into the city and wiped the roof out at Little Harbor School. There's $10 million right gone. We have to keep that $10 million as a rainy day fund. Even Governor Lynch, in his tight budget presentation, he mentioned his rainy day fund. He had a line item contributing to that fund, and he keeps $30 million in it. And he says that's really not enough in case of a serious catastrophe. So I say to you, Mr. Bohenko, I respect your professionalism, but you was wrong on this one, taking money from unfunded designated balance. On another issue, now, here we go again, the Connie Bean Center. First of all, we took the JFK Center. Without an archaeology dig, demolished it. That's gone. Then we took the Pierce property, and we went to court on the Pierce property, because it was set up as Rick's facilities forever and ever. That property was supposed to be used. Now we're going to the Connie Bean Center, and during World War II, that was set up as an Army and Navy association. There was some prominent Portsmouth people involved in establishing with the federal government, the Armed Services Committee, in establishing what they call the Army-Navy Association. And it was established that Connie Bean Center would be used forever and ever as a rec facility. And if it ever was abandoned, the city would take it over and it would continue as a rec center. Now, there are some very prominent people involved in this Army and Navy Association. There was a publisher of the Portsmouth Herald. There was a president of a bank. There was a downtown apparel shop that was very prominent in promoting the city. There was a furniture store owner, and there was a developer. And these people were concerned about serving the military that came to the city in World War II. It was a place where a serviceman could go and play a game of pool, shoot some ping pong, play some hoops, and maybe stay overnight upstairs if he didn't want to go back to his barracks for $1.50, and for another 35 cents he received a towel and a bar of soap to take a shower in the basement. So I'm saying to you, let's get down to basics. Let's bond correctly and bring the Connie Bean Center back to its original state. They criticized the gym floor. That gym floor, ask anybody who's played on that floor, is a very solid floor. There's not a dead spot. Sure, it's tight, but you compensate for the tightness. And when you're driving the hoops, you know there's a brick wall there, and you compensate for that. As far as parking, building is surrounded with 4 different streets. There's always off-street parking. So I'm saying to you, just because we got to put in a sprinkler system and bring this building up to safety standards, let's look at it seriously. I want to, in 3 years, come across the new Memorial Bridge at a ribbon cutting ceremony and look at a big sign on the side of the Connie Bean Center that says, "Welcome to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, home of youth recreation, Connie Bean." And I'm going to be the first one in the door to take in the snacks that's going to be served that day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehouse. Our next speaker.
Good evening. My name is Mitch Schulman. I live at 620 Lincoln Avenue. I'd like to voice my support for the recreation facility at Parrott Avenue. One thing I've learned over the last number of years as chairman of the school board is I only speak for myself. I never step out and speak for members of the board, so I'm only speaking just from my own perspective. I think you've no doubt heard that there's already many synergies that are possible that would come out of this project. Offering more intramural opportunities for middle school students, the ability for the middle school to offer more PE in the schools, which I think many people have said over the years that they're surprised how little physical education we do offer currently. So these are all benefits directly to our children. Plus, again, it's been talked about further efficiencies down the line in terms of the school department working and collaborating with the recreation department. As we do now at the high school, it's really a perfect fit in the future for the middle school athletic program as well. And I think from the community perspective, this creates, I think, a wonderful central focus on this part of the city with the middle school and the library, the recreation facilities, plus it's near all the central services in City Hall. I think when all is said and done, I believe that anyone visiting this city would be astonished at the creative thinking of the city in making this whole project a reality. As one who was involved in the earlier phases of this project, of the middle school, getting middle school bonded, there were 2 important criteria necessary for me to support this idea. One was that not 1 penny of funds from the middle school would be spent on this project, and I've been assured that that's the case. And 2, that when the project is completed, there would continue to be adequate parking for teachers, for the faculty, staff, and visitors at the middle school, and also for visitors and patrons of the library. And I've been assured that that's the case as well when the project is all said and done. So I'd like to voice my support, urge you to vote on this, and moving forward, it would be just yet another wise investment in the future of our city and its citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please. Please come up.
Tom Morgan, 39 Richards Avenue. I agree with most of what Whitey said, except the part about coming across the bridge. He has more confidence than I do that the bridge will still be there in 3 years. I'm here to speak in opposition to the proposal. I'd like to say that I've come to know the Connie Bean Center quite well in the past winter season. I was a regular there. I attended every game of the Raptors. They're ages 6 and 7 girls division. So I can, I'm very familiar with the operations. And if you've ever been to the games for the younger children, you realize that, regulation court really isn't relevant. Connie Bean is small, but it's plenty large enough for children from grades K through 5. I noticed, in fact, the kids can't even reach the hoops. They're 10 feet up in the air. They have to wheel in special basketball hoops. Otherwise, nobody would score any points. The score would be 0-0 at every game. I'd also like to introduce a different way of looking at the delivery of recreational services in the city, at least one I haven't heard tonight, and that is to try to decentralize it. I mean, the traditional model that the way business has always been done in Portsmouth, the rec department has their flagship facility. It's been the Connie Bean for many years, and all the kids, the customers, come to the flagship. Think about sending the recreation department out to where the kids are. There would be some advantages to that model in that there'd be a lot less transporting kids all around. We do have a lot of gyms in the city. I know every single school has a gymnasium. We heard tonight that we only have 1 regulation gym, but we're about to build a second one. And, I say to you, that's fine for grades 6 through 12, but why would you want to build a giant new gym for K through 5? Connie Bean will serve those purposes just fine. And lastly, I agree with everything Charlie Griffin had to say tonight. I was going to say the same thing, except he said it much more eloquently than I could. And this is just a very poor time to be talking about spending a lot of money on a gym, because you can make the argument we don't need it. Some people like it, but we don't need it. And in the face of the layoffs that are coming, I think this would be a poor decision on your part. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Jackie Callie Pitts, 40 Bedford Way. I'm a state rep and I'm also on the Recreation Board. And I've just come from a meeting where we're cutting the county budget, so I understand how hard it is and how difficult it is and what kind of times we're living on. However, what I would say to you is just a quote, if not now, when? When the original high school, when we did the original redo of the high school and the fields, I was on that committee. And one of the proposals we had was for a wonderful hockey ring outside. And at that time, money was tight, and we didn't do it. And the primary reason was money. But we laid out the pad, and we said, you know, we'll get to it. Well, I can't even remember when it was, probably 15 or 16 years ago, and it is now a parking lot. And we never did develop it into that hockey ring that we needed, that would not only have served hockey in this city, but also the individual who wanted to go out and skate. So I just ask you, please consider that if you put this project off, now is the time, and if we don't do it, when will we then be able to do it? As I sit in my home, I know, well, I can't do this now, maybe I'll do it tomorrow, well, I can't do it now, and I can't. And years go by, and things don't get done. So please give it adequate consideration. There are a lot of problems. I agree with that. I agree with everything that's been said. But unless we move forward, I don't think we will. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Good evening. Bill St. Laurent, 253 Colonial Drive. There's a lot of issues that go along with this particular project. First of all, if you do this project, please sell the Connie Bean Center. Don't let another organization come in. Let's have it as a tax base, at least if you're going to do this project. But please consider that, selling the Connie Bean Center. It's a good area for some developer for downtown. One of the things in watching the program here was that you're putting two gyms side by side, which sounds like a pretty good idea. It's going to cost $2 million to do this. But that seems futile. You're going to build a gym onto the middle school. Why not just make that gym facility to be used after school hours? If that's what because I heard that this would not be used until after school hours. It wouldn't take up parking. It wouldn't be used after 4 o'clock. Well, just build one gym and make it adequate for a city facility as a school facility. Why two gyms? That doesn't make sense to me. It's an unnecessary expense, especially at this time in the economic problems that we're having in this country. Parking. It was mentioned that it wouldn't create a problem because this wouldn't be used till after 4 o'clock. Try to use a library. It's already, that area is so impacted right now. It will be even more impacted with the middle school. Now you're going to throw a gym in there. At night, the library has movies, programs. Sometimes 200-300 people go there. Where are you going to put all these cars? brings me to another little problem. We'll handle this later, I heard. Sure. Let's spend another bunch of $1 million on expanding the Parrott Avenue parking lot. We can make that 6 levels. Wouldn't that be wonderful? More expenses. This project is going to cost money to the taxpayer in ways that we haven't even visioned yet, because it's so impacting that area. We've already given parking places to the teachers, which they could have parked in the parking lot across the pond there, which is not being used during the daytime. But we've given that up because now the people that used to use that parking lot have lost a lot of places in that parking lot. All right. Another problem. The project funding seems like it's not going to cost the taxpayer anything. We've got $1,800,000 in the unfunded, undesignated fund balance. That's already there, so that's not going to cost the taxpayer any money. We got $512,000 premium bond sale. That's not increase the tax rate. But the $1,800,000 is going to have to be replaced sometime or other. You don't take the money out without putting it back. So the taxpayer is going to suffer from that one. So think of this project as a cost saving. Like I said, combine the gyms. So make one good sized gym appropriate for both projects. The other thing, you've got 2 projects going there now. You'll have the gym and you'll have the middle school. We have a 1% additional money spent for art in new projects, building projects. So if you look at those projects, it's about $150,000 for the middle school, because that's a big project. If it's over $1 million or $2 million. Now we've got another $2 million project. So there's $250,000, I'm sorry, there's $300,000 more for art that we're not contemplating here. So this thing just keeps expanding and expanding, and expenses, and the taxpayer, nobody cares about them. Nobody's thinking about them. It's great for other people to have a great time. We need all these facilities. We need more gyms. We need more parking places. Let's think of the taxpayer, too. There are ways to do this, I see, without $2 million more going into this. So, like I said, think of the taxpayer. The $1.8 million is going to eventually cost the taxpayer money. It's not a free ride. So please, let's put the taxpayer in this scenario here, and not forget who's paying for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Hi, my name's Amy O'Neill, 1061 Banfield Road. And I'm concerned about the children having the opportunity to continue to exercise and to move. With the growing amount of overweight youth that we have, we need the opportunity to have the facility so that they can move. I believe it will really pay off for their health and the future of our city to open this up. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Please line up. I ask you not to be shy. You're welcome to speak. We want to hear you speak. But please queue up and get in line so that we don't have any delay, if you please.
Hi, my name is Corey Sermain. I reside at 1133 Woodbury Avenue, and I would ask the council for their support of the construction of the new facility as well as the funding for that facility. I am a parent, a coach, as well as a rec board member, and I've spent a lot of time at the Connie Bean, and with my children, and I've just realized the inability for the kids to play and grow in that facility. On a recent Sunday there with both my son and daughter, there was about 34 to 38 kids there of all varying ages, from ages 4 to ages 19, all trying to play on the same court with limited facilities or limited resources available to them. And it really, based on the funding options that have been presented, it just seems to be the right time, the right decision to make at this point. And I would just ask for your support in going forward with this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak? Please rise and approach the podium. I'd ask others who wish to speak to think about getting in line as well. Welcome.
Lori Hebert, 8 Edgewood Road. I do not agree that this proposal should be accepted by you. I think that Charlie Griffin said it and Mr. St. Laurent said it perfectly, that we don't have the money, especially with the school budget cuts that have been made and the guidance counselors that have been cut. I just don't see how you could sleep at night if you propose to spend this kind of money right now. I am against it, and I hope that you vote against it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else care to rise and speak in this public hearing? We have another one, but it's a different subject coming up. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing no one rise? Kent, are you rising to speak? That's okay. All right. No charge for the free advertising. All right. We're going to close the public hearing on this one, and we'll move on to our next presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, excuse me. Thank you, Your Honor. The purpose of tonight's public hearing is to present the proposed capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2012 through 2017. This 6-year plan that we bring before you this evening is in accordance with state and local requirements. Sections 7.6, 7.7, and 7.8 of the city charter outline the requirements and procedures for drafting and updating the capital improvement plan on an annual basis. The process of developing this plan started this past fall when a memorandum went out to all departments asking them to update and identify any new projects and equipment that they felt should be included in this year's CIP. Once all the proposals were submitted, they were then reviewed by a subcommittee made up of members from the Planning Board. Those members were Planning Board Chair John Ritchie, Planning Board members Don Coker and William Gladhill. City staff on this committee included Rick Tainter, the Planning Director, Andrew Pergel, Controller, and myself. The plan that you will have before you, this plan that is before you this evening, was reviewed and detailed by this committee and various department heads. For fiscal year 12, departments submitted requests to be appropriated in the general fund in the amount of $2,451,000. The committee reduced those requests to $1,018,000, a reduction of $1,433,000. Over the past number of years, the city has tried to maintain a general fund appropriation for capital between $1 million and $1.5 million. In fiscal year 10, the general fund capital improvements were funded at $800,000 level, and in FY09 it was funded at approximately $1 million. Last year, the amount funded was approximately $1.2 million. Despite the economic climate, the committee felt that it was important that we continue to fund capital improvements at the minimum level of $1 million. Total improvements for fiscal year 12 in the general fund are estimated to be $22,276,000, of which approximately $7.5 million, or 34% of the proposed projects, will be reimbursed through federal or state funding. In addition, another $1.1 million is estimated to be funded through public-private partnerships. Further, there is a $12 million proposal for a new parking facility at the Worth Municipal Parking Lot. Therefore, 95% of the capital improvements scheduled for next year will not come from the property tax base. Total projects over a 6-year period include general fund and all enterprise funds are estimated to be $152 million. Again, a large majority of these costs will be funded through federal and or state grants. The City Council is required in accordance with Section 7.7 of the City Charter to adopt a capital plan subsequent to the public hearing and before the City Manager submits his budget to the City Council. I anticipate that I'll be transmitting my proposed fiscal year 2012 budget to you on or about April 8, 2011. Given that projected date, I'm suggesting the Council adopt the proposed capital improvement plan at your March 21st meeting. In accordance with the charter, you could adopt a CIP no later than April 4th of this year. At this time, I'd ask that Rick Tainter and the city staff begin presentations. We have about a 25-minute presentation that we will be making, and at that time, I'll turn it back to you, Your Honor.
Thank you. If you could proceed with the presentation, we would appreciate it, and after that, we will open the public hearing.
Good evening. Thank you. The first project is part of the city's ambulance replacement program, identified for the out years 13, 14, and 16. Again, another replacement of the city's rolling stock, the fire department, the rescue vehicle in fiscal year 13. A replacement for fire engine number 4 in fiscal year 15. Replacement of fire engine number 1 in fiscal year 16. A rescue boat to accompany the larger fire boat in fiscal year 14. Cardiac monitors and defibrillator replacement and upgrade program for all the department's cardiac defibrillators and monitors in fiscal year 12. SCBA replacement program is a 3-year project to replace all of the department's self-contained breathing apparatus.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is David Farrell, and I'm the chief of police. This next project is for fiscal year 13, and this is for radio system improvements, more specifically during emergency operations. The next slide is for the fingerprinting system, which would allow us to do direct comparisons in the police department of fingerprints of people previously arrested with unknown samples that we might have at a crime scene.
This project is Station 3 replacement, put in the capital improvement plan as an identifier only.
As you see in other slides, there's some outlying projects about the police department and the space. This is a space needs study that would predate it, that would front-load it to determine if the police department should stay where it's at and or if it should move to a separate facility. And the next slides are outlining the year's appropriations for that, depending on whether the space needs study suggested that the police department stay where it's at. It would be for building improvements at our current location, or if it wanted us to move out to a different facility, there's funding that is associated with that in the next slide.
Steve Bartlett, Business Administrator for the School Department. This slide represents the triennial appropriation for capital improvements in our school buildings. The next slide shows that, well, actually this slide shows that we don't have anything until FY13, so it's a placeholder for us. This slide shows the proposed usage for the $500,000 in FY13, roof replacement at the high school for roofs that were not done during the last upgrade, and district-wide pavement improvements. This slide represents the upgrade of the elementary schools, which is slated as a placeholder in FY16.
Steve Parkinson, Public Works Director. The next 3 projects deal with improvements to facilities at Prescott Park. The first being the replacement of the existing marina docking facility, which is in excess of 20 years old, looking at funding a public-private partnership in FY12. Next project deals with the rehabilitation or replacement of the existing city-owned restroom and snack bar facility at Prescott Park, also looking in FY12, a public partnership project. And third, the Prescott Park facilities capital improvements, similar to the program that we run on the remaining city facilities, funding improvements over a series of years to preserve the historic nature and character of the existing buildings in that location. And there's a listing on the next page of those projects spread out over the years.
Cindy Hayden, Deputy City Manager. This project starts to set aside funding for redo of the citywide master plan, last adopted almost 6 years ago today. This project is one the city has funded every year for a number of years, adds money to the conservation fund for land acquisition, which we use to leverage state and federal grant funds for conservation land. This project is the second year of funding to develop a master plan, conceptual level master plan for the Jones Avenue parcel, which is a 66-acre city-owned piece. This is the replacement of historic markers, of which there used to be dozens around downtown in the 1970s, and we have 3 out there on the ground now and 5 more in development, and this is one that you probably have seen in town of the Portsmouth Great Fires. As you know, we adopted the Pierce Island Master Plan over 10 years ago, and each year we set aside funding to implement some portion of that plan. Most recently, we did a complete revamp of all the signs out on the island, and that has gotten very good reviews. Park and playground projects, that has long been an annual project for the city. In this current year, funding is shown that would complete the funding of improvements at the Plains Ball Field. And out-year funding, some of the projects that have been mentioned are for playground equipment potentially at the new Granite Street Ball Field, and then also to replace the little playground that's in the vicinity of the middle school and the library. The African Burying Ground is a project that's been in the capital plan for a number of years for design money. Design is now complete and private fundraising is underway, and this is a capital project that would fund construction of the memorial park itself. Another section of Chestnut Street in front of the Music Hall is proposed as a public-private partnership. We attempted in the last transportation enhancement grant round to get funding for the public portion of this and have not yet been successful, so this is shown in an out year. This is basically streetscape improvements in front of the Music Hall. As you know, the feds will be moving out of the McIntyre building. The design of their new facility is underway out at Pease, and their anticipated date for leaving the downtown location is 2014. So this sets aside money to begin planning for the redevelopment of that site. And this is more detailed preliminary engineering and design for the McIntyre building site. This Winchester Place, Ledgewood Manor Park is a piece of land that is leased by the city and awaits the private portion of the money contribution to make this public-private partnership happen. Similarly, the North Mill Pond pedestrian and bikeway is on non-city-owned land owned by the railroad, and we await permission from the railroad to allow us to make improvements there.
Russ Wilson, Recreation Director. Our first project is the creation of a youth recreation center at the new middle school renovation project. Earlier this evening, other funding sources were identified for this project. As part of the comprehensive recreation needs study, our next project, as well as indoor facilities, the study focused on outdoor recreation field space. And based on current demand, the study identified the additional need for multi-purpose fields and softball fields. Funding is identified for land acquisition and design, as well as field development in future years. During the FY211 budget process, the City Council approved a plan for the eventual transfer of the indoor pool to a not-for-profit organization. This transfer is scheduled for January of 2012. The not-for-profit will be responsible for all capital improvements to the indoor pool.
Steve Parkinson again. Historic cemetery improvements. This project utilizes funding to improve the 5 historic cemeteries throughout the city in conjunction with the cemetery committee. Next we have our seawall replacement program. Second year funding to replace seawalls along our waterfront, and the next is a listing of those seawalls. Next we have the second year of replacement for the elevator here at the municipal complex. Currently we have funding to do 1 elevator. This would give us sufficient funding to do the second. In FY 13 and 14, looking to put away money to replace the existing wooden storage building down by the boiler house with a modern storage facility. Our citywide capital improvement program in FY 14 and 17, this has been moved out to every third year funding process, whereby we invest back in our existing facilities. Sound barriers along I-95, Atlantic Heights and Panaway Manor. The State DOT is currently in the process of doing design improvements for the section of the I-95 that abuts Atlantic Heights, and after that we're going to continue working on them to get additional barriers along I-95 in the Panaway Manor area.
John Frederick, Director of Parking and Transportation. The first project is a High Hanover parking facility capital improvements, requesting $140,000 FY12 for a continued repair of our concrete decks and stair towers.
Alan Brady, ITD Coordinator for the City of Portsmouth. The This is the replacement schedule for the information technology upgrades for the city. For the city hall, we have $25,000 for the 20 computers. Public Works, we have $20,000 set aside for the parking software and $20,000 set aside for the replacement of the radios. I'm going to skip over to the fire department, which is the $40,000 for the replacement of radios. And in the police department, they have basically come up with the funding for the $99,000. They found that in the previous years they've had funds set aside and they haven't come up to spend the $99,000. So basically they are making a mess of this. But
Your Honor, what I'll do is, excuse me,
Yeah,
Alan,
John.
what I will do at March 21st is I'll recommend that the City Council amend the capital plan to delete the $99,000 from the police. So that would be deleted from that.
Okay. Great. And the following slides are the breakdown of the IT infrastructure within the city. Thank you.
Transit infrastructure improvements is $4,000 from parking revenues to leverage federal funding for bus shelters, benches, and other infrastructure at high-use bus stops. Next are free public parking shared lot agreements, $21,500 for the Masons lot. Parking lot paving, in FY12 we're requesting $50,000 to repave the Bridge Street lot, and then FY14 we'll be focusing on the Parrott Ave lot. Violations management program is a database and handheld ticket writers that we use for our citations process. Pay and display parking meters, requesting $65,000 FY12 for the final 8 meters that bring us up to 60 meters citywide. Parking garage credit card system. This would be a pay-on-foot system similar to what you would see in an airport, where a payment is made prior to exiting, and then just a ticket is run through the exit, and it expedites the process of exiting a parking facility. And a parking facility at the Worth Municipal Parking Lot, requesting $12 million in FY12.
In FY12, we're requesting additional funding to continue with the implementation, design, and construction of a wayfinding system for the Central Business District in downtown Portsmouth. FY13, a public-private partnership dealing with the intersection of Coakley Road, Cottage Street, and the Route 1 bypass, the installation of pedestrian improvements at that location, along with modifications to the controlling system. Citywide sidewalk reconstruction program, along with our pavement management system. We utilize every other year funding to improve our sidewalks in conjunction with other projects such as water and sewer reconstruction work. Next is a list of those potential areas for FY14 and 15. Beverly Hill Road, new sidewalk and shoulders, design monies in FY13 and 14 with construction in FY16. Spinney Road, new sidewalk, there again, construction and design money in FY14 and 15. US Route 1, new sidewalk construction from Hoover Drive to Constitution, looking at construction funding in FY14 and 15. Continuing our improvements to our citywide traffic signal upgrade program, funding on a yearly basis to upgrade to new traffic signal technologies. Citywide intersection improvements through the Traffic Safety Committee. There are minor improvements that need to be done at various locations throughout the city, and funding in FY13 will continue this program. Working with New Hampshire DOT, the modernization of the Market Street Railroad crossing is anticipated in FY13. Looking at the improvements to the intersection of Islington, Bartlett, Jewel Court realignment. Currently, that is earmarked for FY17. Woodbury Ave turning lanes and traffic operational improvements, setting aside money over FY12 and 13, along with some private developer money we've already received to improve the traffic coordination in this corridor, as well as adding a turning lane at Durgan Lane. Anticipating the replacement of the Memorial Bridge, The Scott Ave Bridge, which is the approach to it, belongs to the city and would be replaced at the same time. We're looking at funding in FY13. In FY15, we're looking at construction money to replace the existing metal pipe arch under Maplewood Ave at the North Mill Pond with a new structure. And in FY 2030, in the long-range plan, the replacement of the Kate Street Bridge. In FY 13, 14, and 15, looking at years 3, 4, and 5 of the funding for the McDonough Street area improvements. Currently, we have under construction Phase 1. Phase 2 has just gone out to bid, and this will continue that 5-year commitment. In FY 13, Aldrich Road traffic safety improvements along that corridor from Middle Street to Islington. And continuing to set aside funds in FY 13 and 14 for a traffic modeling project to tie into the area-wide project, but a more specific project for the central area of the city of Portsmouth and our main arterials. Citywide tree replacement program is a project with the Trees and Public Greenery Committee, funded on a yearly basis to replace those trees that have succumbed to the urban conditions. In FY 13, looking to put away funding over 5 years to do transportation plan studies for truck routes, downtown circulation studies, bike and pedestrian ways. Continuing on our gateway improvements from exit 7 to the downtown area along Market Street, design monies in 13, 15, and 17, with construction funds in 14, 16, and potentially 18. Our street management program that goes hand in hand with our sidewalk program. This is where we combine with our water sewer projects, work with the gas companies to improve our roadway systems in the city. And looking at 14 and 15 on the next sheet, the list of those streets. Islington Street improvements, design money is there again in FY 13, 15, and 17 with construction funding in 14 and 16. Maplewood rehabilitation in FY 13, doing safety improvements as well as curbing, signage, and pavement markings. In FY 13, 15, and 17, we've set up the same type of roadway rehabilitation project on an every other year basis for the street system on Pease International Trade Port. And on the next page, you'll see a listing of those streets as we anticipate the costs. The next series of slides deal with projects that are more federal and state funding and have no city dollars involved, but are in here for identification. U.S. Route 1, intersection with Constitution, looking at funding in FY12 and potential construction funding in FY13 for that intersection. Replacement of the B&M Railroad Bridge over Bartlett Street. That project is in the Rockingham Planning Commission 2009-2035 transportation plan, but without any designated funding or construction year at this time.
Cindy Hayden, this project continues the multi-year effort in Atlantic Heights to upgrade the streetscapes there. This is completely funded with federal community development block grant dollars, and this would implement improvements to Concord and Porpoise Way already designed.
Next project deals with U.S. Route 1 and the widening from Wilson Road to Constitution Ave. This project is currently in the Rockingham Planning Commission long-range plan with construction funding in FY 2020. Next, we have the replacement of the bridges across Route 1 bypass north of the traffic circle. Currently, they have slated funding for that work in FY 12. The traffic circle replacement currently is not in the 10-year plan, and the Rockingham Planning Commission is trying to get that in the long-range plan for construction and funding in FY 2025. And last is a roundabout on Pease at Corporate International Durham, potentially in FY 12.
Peter Rice, City Engineer for the Water and Sewer Divisions. The next 4 projects cover the city's ongoing sewer separation program. These are consent decree-driven programs. The first one builds off of the recently completed Bartlett Street program. It's the Cass Street area. The next one is the second in a series of projects in the Lincoln sewer separation area. And the third is a the last of the Lincoln area sewer separation. This item addresses some of the funding aspects of these projects. Traditionally, we've been funding these projects through a state revolving fund program. We've, due to changes in the program, we're reevaluating the use of this, and these items would address non-eligible items, and they would be rolled into bonding if the SRF program is not used. This project is a utility project to be done prior to road and streetscape improvements. It's on the Fleet Street area. The inflow and infiltration elimination project identifies areas where we see excess flow, which causes additional costs associated with the treatment and conveyance of this excess wastewater flow, and this is a cost savings type of project. This item funds the upgrades at the Pierce Island wastewater treatment facility. This out-year project would address capital needs at our Pease wastewater treatment facility. This item addresses annual sewer line replacement for our older sewer lines in areas outside of our sewer separation programs. This item is in conjunction with the road project that Steve Parkinson had mentioned. I would replace a section of sewer line near the culvert on Maplewood Avenue. And this last item is an out-year project that's to be done in conjunction with DOT's upgrades along the Route 1 bypass corridor.
David Allen, Deputy Director of Public Works. The first project is the annual water line replacement. This replaces, upgrades older, undersized water lines in areas where we're doing other work such as sewer separation or road reconstruction. The next project is a specific water line replacement project on Maplewood Avenue. This is one of our out-year projects. The next one is more or less a master plan study for our 6 water tanks that we have in our system that will study and advise us on maintenance, replacement, and sizing. This out-year project is one of those tanks that has maintenance issues, and we're going to be evaluating in the previous study. The next project is Hobbs Hill Tank, which will also be looked at in an out year. It's one of our tanks that will either need some maintenance or a potential replacement. The next project is our continued program of well station improvements. We have 9 wells in our system, and this looks at upgrades to mechanical and electrical systems to improve reliability and efficiency of those wells. And the last project is replacing a water line in a part of our system that runs between Odiorn Point and the Newcastle portion of our system.
That's the presentation on the capital program, Your Honor. At this time, I would turn it back to you to open it up for public comment.
I will open it up for public comment. Before I do so, I would just ask, and again, councilors have seen this presentation before, and because of we do so at a work session, for the public, just to remember that when you hear things that are mentioned in out years, we vote on the capital improvement plan, but it's the projects in the given fiscal year that are going to be brought forward. In addition, where bonding is required, and we do have to vote for bonds, there's another opportunity for the council to vote to actually approve the expenditure of the money, so that you understand where we are procedurally. Finally, the capital improvement plan is currently online and available for members of the public to observe, and the action the council would be taking on the capital improvement plan would be at our meeting on the 21st. This is the public hearing evening. We've heard the presentation, and I will now open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. I'll just restate once again, the rules are that you may speak as long as you wish regarding the subject of the capital improvement plan. I would ask that you be courteous to your fellow speakers and consider that they wish to speak as well. I would also ask that you queue up as promptly as you can, so that when we go through the individuals who wish to speak, we can move the process along. The public hearing is now open. You'll have one opportunity to speak in that public hearing, and I invite you to come forward. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mayor Ferrani and City Council members. Bill St. Laurent, 253 Colonial Drive. And you're right, Mayor, we should just stick with what you're going to be voting for, what's going to cost us this year in our next budget. And that's where I'll stay. I'm glad to see that you did bring this down to $1 million. That was a big help. I would ask if it's possible to even bring it down a little bit more for this year anyway, because you're going with a level budget this year, and anything else that you can do to help in this tough economic time would be appreciated. As far as looking through this, there's not a heck of a lot of things that I can see that you would reduce, but just to throw out a few here, the Prescott Park various building improvements, which I always thought that the monies that were used in Prescott Park were from the trust. That might be looked at. Land acquisition, we could probably move that up. The Jones Avenue, these master plan things, I just would see that this would be a good opportunity to keep the CIP this year down and move that up. The implementation of the Pierce Island Master Plan project for $50,000. These are just a few that, in looking the wayfinding system, I can't see that something that's needed right now that either moved up or possibly done away with. And I mean, I'm not quite sure. I guess that means directions around the city. And the replacement tree program, that probably could be held off for a year. These are just a few that I mean, there's not a lot. I don't see a lot of it, because a lot of these other things have to be done. They're in the process of being done. The street, the sewer replacement, water replacement, things like that have to be done. So I'd appreciate if at least you could look at it a little more and maybe bring it down another couple of $100,000. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone care to rise and further speak for, against, or simply to the public hearing on the capital improvement plan? I'm looking around, seeing no one rise. We have a taker. Unless the individual is leaving the chambers, and that does not appear to be the case. That is not a hint, by the way. Please come forward. You're most welcome to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Eric Anderson, 38 Georges Terrace. I believe that, you know, it is probably true it's a very lean capital improvement budget for this particular year. And I know it's been the goal of the council to shoot for zero budget increase. I couldn't decipher, and maybe I just have to look into it. Maybe that answer can come forward. But with regards to the enterprise funds, where we're shooting for no tax increase, I just want to make sure that, you know, that those enterprise funds are fees, water and sewer. And I hope there's no. I hope, and I don't understand it, whether there's going to be increase in fees, maybe not taxes, but fees. And so I don't know how this relates to the fee-based revenue of the enterprise fund, and whether that's going to fall on the, you know, the users. I'm going to combine comments. I held back earlier, but since it is really a component of the capital improvement fund, it was from the previous comment or the previous public hearing with regards to the recreational facility. I know there were two options presented in how to fund that facility. And I'm not sure, every year when it would come around, the undesignated balance fund is held pretty close to the cuff as far as, you know, using it or
or accessing it. This year, I think with the discussion that was held previously, it was somewhat of a liberal move to start to release those funds. I hope the council holds off and times this issue, times the issue correctly with funding the recreational facility against where the tax rate might come and go in relation to some of the other uncontrollable issues related to county or state that are developing. You know, try not to treat them separately, but combine this so that if you have to take an alternative route of how to fund these things, you might want to not use 1.8 million out of the unfunded balance fund for that recreational facility, but maybe use it to offset some potential increases that you can't account for now. That would be a financing issue that I hope that you just, you know, keep close to the discussion in this whole thing. They're two separate issues. I don't really have any really particular, you know, comments with regards to the CIP as far as the projects. They're very lean. I get more worried to look at the out years, but we're only discussing this year right now. Just be conscious of how you fund these things. You might want to reconfigure your how you want to fund two projects using the undesignated balance fund, and maybe you might be able to use some of that to defray unexpected consequences that you're going to have to deal with the budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to all speakers who have been before us this evening. Does anyone else care to rise and speak with regard to the capital improvement plan? Seeing no one rise, I close the public hearing. Thank you for your commentary. And as we've had some lengthy presentations and some public comment, Chair would entertain a motion for a brief recess.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, 5 minutes, folks. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, folks. Thank you for your patience. Public out there, we're calling the meeting back to order after a recess. Give councilors an opportunity to assume their seat at the dais, and we'll continue with this evening's meeting. Item 8 is approval of grants and donations, the first being acceptance of Police Department grant from the Seacoast Crime Stoppers in support of the upcoming 2011 Citizens Police Academy in the amount of $1,000. Do we have a motion to approve and accept?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, it's unanimous. Item 9, consideration of resolutions and ordinances. The first is first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 7, Article 3, Section 7.321, subsection G, snow emergency parking ban. And we would consider perhaps for the council's consideration whether this is accepted. We pass first reading, scheduling a public hearing and second reading for the proposed ordinance at the March 21st City Council meeting. Does anyone care to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion duly seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. Is everyone in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any opposed? None. Passes unanimously. We'll move on to item B. Adoption of proposed resolution appropriating funds for the construction of a youth recreation facility. Two funding options are items listed here. The first is $512,700.58 for the bond-related money, and then $1,800,000 from fund balance. And this has been presented extensively before us. We would need a motion to adopt the resolution, and the resolution has been attached. Does anyone care to make a motion to begin the discussion?
I'll move to adopt the two resolutions that were just read. Second.
We have a motion offered and seconded. Discussion. Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne.
I plan to vote in favor of the motion for a number of reasons. Many of them have been stated here tonight. First, I would like to say that about a year ago, we put the Efficiency Committee together to come up with ideas where we could combine services for the city, and I think this is an excellent way to incorporate this plan that we had, because we're using two departments, and they're using the same facilities that they will share. They'll share custodial, they'll share maintenance, they'll share electric, they'll share oil, or natural gas, whatever it is. And I think that's really valuable to the city, that our Efficiency Committee criteria is being used here. I also think that if you look at the study, the recreation study that was done, again, about a year ago it was released, it talked about the need to replace the Connie Bean Center, and I think this is an excellent way to do it, and it certainly is efficient as far as cost goes, because we're combining it with the middle school at a price of $2.3 million. If we were to build this building by itself, it certainly would cost a lot more than that. And I think that considering that our youth recreation facilities are in need in this city, I think this is a great step in that direction. I think the parking issue, perhaps, we have talked about parking at, quite a bit with the middle school and with that whole area of the downtown. We had Marion List on the Joint Building Committee to ensure that the library parking is taken care of. And I think that we need to maybe have it go to the parking committee just for a review of how the parking could be for that part of the city after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You will recall that the teachers are gone then, the staff is gone then, so 100 parking spaces should be vacant after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which hopefully will allow people to come in. I also would like to say that we can't forget that we have that South Mill parking lot right across the way from Parrott Ave. Except in the middle of the summer, that parking lot is not full. You do have to walk a little bit, but that parking lot is available for something like this youth recreation facility. So I think we should all keep that in mind. Another thing I would like to say is I truly believe that this could become a Connie Bean Center and not just a second gym. We have this beautiful brand new middle school that has lots of classrooms, and in this particular area where the second gym is going to be, will be a health room, there'll be the commons where the kids are going to eat, It also, the Commons area has a stage. So let's say the Connie Bean Center wants to have its father-son dance. Father-daughter dance. They could have it in this common area that has a stage where the band could go. So they could use other parts of the new middle school. They're just not using the second gym. So I think we should remember that. My kids took yoga at the Connie Bean. They took CPR at the Connie Bean. We took judo and all these other things. We could still do all of those activities at this second gym, or instead of saying the second gym, I really think we should say it's the new Connie Bean Center, because you can do all of those activities utilizing this beautiful new middle school that we're going to have with lots of space. What else did I have? Maybe that's. Maybe I'll come back to me if I find something else here. But I am voting for it.
Thank you, Assistant Mayor. Councilor Dwyer.
I think the Assistant Mayor has made, many of the points that had brought the JBC in the first place to wanting to look at this, along with the Recreation Department. I just want to reiterate one of the points that she made, which is, given the construction dollar at this point and what it's buying, and given the design coming together at the same time, from an investment standpoint, this is never going to be less expensive. This is our optimal time to do it. So I think from a long-term investment point of view, this is a great time. And I would also remind people that 2.3 is the outside cost. We're currently getting bids in and are feeling good about what we're starting to see for costs. So I think the efficiencies for operation are true, but the efficiencies for building in terms of dollar cost, I think, are serious things to take into consideration.
Councilor Coviello.
I think the two councilors spoke for me, made some great points, and the public made some great points on. I have a question, and I wonder if maybe the city manager could help with this, and that is, currently the state proposed budget by the governor is asking to do something that they've done in the past, and that is, and this is where I can need some help. We have a bond for the high school. It's asking for like a 1-year leave of that bond or something. Can you explain what exactly?
Well, what the governor's budget is proposing to do is something he's never done, that's never been done before. It's been done before. Let me explain. Sure. Okay. What's been done before is they have skipped the payment or reduced the payment, probably reduced the payment to us, but have made it up in the next year. What the governor is proposing this year is to reduce payments to only provide 40% for 1 year only, which would never be replaced. What we've heard from the legislature, that they do not want to downshift this cost. Right. So I do not believe, but you never know, that would prevail. It is a commitment the state made. It is a commitment that we, entered into many years ago on the high school. And it's not only the city of Portsmouth, it's schools throughout New Hampshire that had a promise from the state and built based on that promise. So, do I know what's going to happen up there? I wouldn't even hesitate to try to say that I do, but what we've heard out of the leadership is that they don't anticipate downshifting this cost to local governments. Now, that could change, but I don't know. The governor's budget is the governor's budget. The legislature now has to act on it.
Councilor Coviello.
Thank you. And to follow up on the other councilors' comments, I've really, hemmed and hawed over this issue because, people made the case that, you can use the other facilities. And I think really when it comes down to that, if we really need to have, if we're going to have a commitment to youth recreation, then we have to do it. So I agree in that sense of it. It's just the payment of it that I'm having hesitation on, and I know that there's a timing issue here, but there's a sense of being rushed. And not that this body hasn't deliberated enough, and rushed in the sense of our timeline with the state budget process, and so that's my hesitancy at this point, and I look forward to other councilors' comments and see where they stand.
Well, we'll stay with first-time speakers in this instance, and then we'll come around to people again. Councilor Kennedy.
I had the same problem, and then today, I've been debating this in my mind, and today, unfortunately, I spent most of the morning trying to figure out how to take a huge bunch of money out of a school budget, and for two reasons. One, a governor came last week with a budget that downshifted a lot of funds. No matter how we look at it, it was downshifted. And B, the fuel and heating prices are going through the roof. So I had personally spent a lot of time. So then it started me to look back at what Portsmouth. And I guess my feeling is that I know this is being rushed and whatnot, but I really feel that there's some major things that we need to address. And also, we have contracts that we turn down for less money than this. So part of me is saying, you know, where do we work here? Where do we say? We're saying that we want to save money. We're saying that we want to make a difference. In these economic times, we know people are hurting, and I can't imagine what the gas prices are going to start doing to some of our major commuters out of our city. But I also know that we turned down some contracts for future and funding. So right now, I'm having a hard time putting this money out there, this 2.4 out there, knowing these economic times right now. And I also heard Representative Kelly Pitts, and she is right that we might postpone it, and it might never be built. But if it's something that we really believe in, and it's something that we really want, then I can't believe the city of Portsmouth will not build it when we financially have the capability and we understand what we're looking at in the future a little bit better. Because right now, I'm looking into the future where we have major fuel prices, we have major gas prices, and given the fact that I know City of Portsmouth does use biofuels, but still there's fuel prices. We have a state government that's unstable and hasn't made some major decisions yet. I don't feel like right now I can put any money out there until those things are settled, because I will not let the City of Portsmouth's taxes, if I can help it, go up.
Councilor Smith.
Thank you. This is a tough one for me as well. I really think that we do need a recreation center, and I think if it does go over there, it has to be called the Connie Bean Center. But at this time, I'm wondering, is this the right time? Just as other councilors have already said, we were just given notice today that the fire department might be coming in short. We have a lot of concerned citizens out there about the parking situation. We've been trying to work on it. I really think that this has to go before the parking committee before we can do the funding for it, to be able to have the resolution on how we're going to be able to handle the cars. Yes, teachers will be leaving at 4 o'clock, but not all of them. A lot of them stay for after-school programs. A lot of them are going to be doing these additional programs that they were talked about today. We're talking about taking $1.8 million out of fund balance. It's a one-time expenditure. I understand that. But, you know, one-time expenditure could also be to the capital fund. We got $512,000 from a bond premium. We could take that $500,000 and put that to the CIP if we had to, and reduce taxes. Currently, we're looking at what the governor's budget is coming in at, as there's going to be almost a 41-cent increase to us here. The county is at 6% increase in taxes, and we haven't done anything. We still don't know what the police department's coming in with the fire department. Police and fire use a lot of fuel, and gas prices are going up and up. Without making a motion at this time, I would like to table this, and I'm not making that as a motion because I want other councilors to speak, but I think we should table this to at least get this to the parking committee. And I have a parking committee meeting this Thursday. We can expedite things to get information back, but I think we have to look at some more of the issues that are going to impact at least the parking issue, because the tax issue, if you just look at the expenditure, as much as we need it, as I was saying to my wife the other night, we need a new dishwasher in our house. It's not happening this year. I'm the dishwasher. And until that gets, until the economy comes around, and it will, but until that happens, I cannot support it at this time.
I'm going to go down this side because we've had councilors speak on this side, so first-time speakers going down this way. Councilor Lister.
Thank you. I know this came out of the youth recreation study, but I think one of the problems that we have is that we're calling this the youth recreation facility. This is no more than an extra gym in an office. You know, I know it's attached to the middle school, but I remember several years ago when we talked about having a second gym in the middle school, when we planned the middle school and where it was, we knew there were going to be issues with parking, and decided not to build a gym at that time. I don't feel rushed into deciding whether or not we need the second gym. And I don't want to reiterate everything the other councilors have said, because there are some good points. People in the public have some good points as well. But this is kind of like last Thursday when I went to Sears to buy a refrigerator. Got a great deal. Everything seemed to make sense. When I asked the salesperson how long the sale was on, he said tomorrow, which meant we had to make some decisions about that. And the reason I bring that up is that I know we need to take everything into consideration, but I don't feel as though we're rushing into this. I think the fact that the time for this is probably right, given everything else that we're doing with the middle school and that whole area on Parrott Avenue. I'm very concerned about the parking. I have been for a long time, and I'll say it again. I'm very concerned about the parking. And I appreciate Councilor Smith offering to, have another group look at that. But I think at this point, given the creative proposal for funding that the city manager has put before us, and the opportunity that we have, we're not going to have another opportunity to build a gym, and we're not going to build a gym anywhere else. We're not going to start looking at more property and everything else. So for those reasons, I would support the proposal to have a second gym, knowing that we're looking at efficiencies, we're looking at using the middle school in a more efficient manner with the schools and the recreation department, and that's just going to have to continue. But I support the proposal.
Thank you, Councilor Lister. Councilor Atmanik.
Yeah, these things always get complicated, I think. With all the issues going on in the state, with all the many points brought up that I agree with, I can see the benefits and I can see the complexities. And in one way, I think it's unfortunate this vote came up tonight, because I would really like to know what the guaranteed cost of the middle school is, which we'll know in a few weeks. Now, if the guaranteed cost overruns the budget, I'd feel differently about voting for this. So we've got all these uncertainties. So I agree with Councilor Smith that if we could put this off for a month, we might understand a little better what the state is doing. We might understand what the middle school cost is going to be, because we're going to get the guaranteed price in a couple weeks, right?
We'll
Councilor Dwyer?
We'll probably be looking at that in early April.
Well,
middle April. I mean, because we do want to break ground in April, so we do need to.
Well, we could have the vote right after that. I mean, a few days won't matter to Gulbane, and I'm sure. I mean, they're one of the premier construction companies in the United States, and they've got contacts with their vendors, so I think they could handle.
Thank you, Councilor Atmanik. Councilor Spear. If you had your hand up.
Would you like Councilor Dwyer? Come on, you've really been aching to speak, and then I will speak on it.
Councilor Dwyer.
Just to clarify a few things, because I think everybody's points are really good, and as we heard from the members of the public, people can be torn about this. But even though it's late and it's easy to be torn about it, we do want to keep something straight, and I don't want to get too many things mixed in this conversation that don't go in here. And one of the things that doesn't go in here is our operational budget. The fact that, Chief LeClaire decided, based on his January budget, that he might overrun his budget really does not have a lot to do with the decision to go forward for the next 20 years with a recreation center. So some things that have been brought up, I think, are very relevant and relate to our decision, and some things are about our annual operations budget. And we would not, because it wouldn't be appropriate, we couldn't legally take the funds that the city manager has identified and use them for our annual operations budget anyway. So that's not really those things are not on the same table. We need to worry about both of them, but they're not on the same table. Similarly with the capital budget, I guess the major thing I would say about the state is, if you don't want to live in an unstable state, you're in the wrong place. And I don't think we're going to know anything more a month from now, honestly, given how things have been going. So putting off this to figure out what our state is going to do would kill the project, because there is so much going on at the state level that is so confusing right now. But I want to reiterate what the city manager said, because I'm sitting on the municipal advocacy committee for the local government center. So last week I was in Concord with all of those folks when the people were talking about what Councilor Coviello brought up. And everyone was totally outraged by the governor's proposal to reduce the funding, because there were a number of communities there that had just passed in their last March town meetings, had passed bond issues for their schools. And, much as we have felt some of the other issues that have been put forth are our number one issues, I can tell you for the communities there, people just went wild in that meeting when they realized that. And so what the city manager has said is that even the House leadership has said, there won't be that kind of downshifting, because I do think that's a really legitimate concern to bring up. But I just don't think that we can, putting it off a month, if in your mind is that the state budget might be settled by then, it just, that just can't, it's just not going to happen. So I think the issues that are brought up are legitimate in terms of weighing, do we need it? Do we need it there? I happen to think that those have been answered, but I can see why those two are out there. I just wouldn't want us to be confusing this with the annual operating budget, which is where fuel costs would go and that type of thing, or being able to wait out the state.
Further speakers? I'm going to stay on this side, and then we'll move down this way. Council Coviello.
I guess to further one of my, not further, just a new point that I probably should have brought up initially, that part of my hesitation is that $1.8 million coming from the fund balance and having it to as a rainy day fund, especially. I don't mind it being high in this economy and this budget as being presented by the state. And as an aside, I appreciate that the majority leadership doesn't want to is outraged over this proposed downshifting, but they're also proposing cuts to tax revenue at the same time. So they have cross purposes on the either side of the ledger. It's a little bit of insanity. Well, not a little bit. It's a lot. Getting back to my point of the $1.8 million, if we have a parking omnibus proposal coming before us, I think in March, later on this month, my hope is that if we can find new revenues in that, I know we've been initial conversation about increased fees. If we find new revenues in that, and that we're not sending the bill out through the property taxpayer in the future or past, when that $1.8 million is really a past property tax bill, then I would be much more in favor of it, knowing that we had new revenues to cover ourselves, and that kept that $1.8 million nest egg for a certain rainy day.
Council Spear.
Thank you. I know we're all paid to think fast on our feet, but what's hard about tonight is that, usually we get three for these votes. We get 3 readings, and it's great, and we have a public hearing, and we can go home and think about it. And a lot of people, I thought I had everything figured out with this, Jim. And then people speak, and they have all kinds of things I hadn't thought about. And in fact, the councilors also have good things to say. And with that in mind, again, not making a motion, but I would favor postponing it, not because the state's going to figure anything out. I agree, we're not going to learn anything more. But for 2 reasons. Number one, I don't mind cogitating on this matter after listening to the public for the first time, by the way, on the Jim, was tonight. I'd like to think about that and get some more feedback and talk to some more constituents. Second, I was thinking, On the revenue side, we are addressing the parking omnibus in March, but I agree. I really think we need to be much more aggressive in the revenue side of the ledger, and I'd like to see that stuff move forward concretely before we commit to a large project like this. And I know the council can move with alacrity if it needs to. It can get things done, and so that's what I'm thinking right now.
Let's see. Councilor Kennedy, we'll work back this way.
I just like to do a point of clarification. CIP has general funds in it that we use, and they're one-time amounts. So technically, this 1.8 million could use for some of those projects. So, I mean, I think we are looking at the big picture and the whole thing. It's not just general fund or everyday expenses. I think that we are looking at the big picture, and we can use some of these monies, if we need to put them towards one-time deals that are in the CIP. I'm not suggesting that we even touch these funds, because we have no idea what the future is going to bring to the next couple of years. Do I think after that we might be, and if you look at the economists, yes, we might be in a much better picture. But, you know, I'm all right with waiting if we want to wait on the vote, but if we vote tonight, I can't support it with all these things going on. So I just want to make a clarification that these funds could be used for one-time amounts in the CIP, which does come out of the general fund in some respect.
Councilor Dwyer.
Just to sort of put that in perspective, then we could, for example, for one-time for one-time replacement of some water pipes, which is about the same cost, use this, and we don't blink an eye at many of the costs that are in the CIP that are one-time costs. And so it's not like the rec center is a frill, and replacing water pipes is something that we must do, and no one even raises a concern about it. So I think we need to kind of put some of these things in balance. And to the parking issues, the parking revenues are going to a parking enterprise fund, so they wouldn't be. I agree, by the way, that we need to look at those revenues, we need to raise those funds, but that's not going to offset general fund or capital costs. It's yet another thing, and I think it's a good thing, and I think we need to move forward on it, but it's not as if it's a trade-off for these other pieces. So I'm a little puzzled by that, because whether we raise parking revenues or not that go into a parking enterprise fund, that will help us to build our parking garages, and it will help us to do that type of thing, but it's not going to help us with things non-parking related. Yes?
I just want to mention that.
Councilor Hetmanik.
Well, I just want to mention that part of the parking fund, 1.4 million, goes from parking into the general fund today. So it is offsetting taxes.
Except there is a proposed change in that with the omnibus.
Well, it's proposed. But because it's proposed, it hasn't happened yet. So currently, 1.4 million goes from parking into the general fund. That's a fact.
So I was just
pointing out the fact.
I was just going with what we have on the omnibus and what's part of the whole package.
They're assuming the proposal passes.
Well, so are the people who want it to pass for the same reason. That's why it's called an omnibus, because all the parts go together.
Further speakers? If not, I'll pass the gavel.
Mayor Farini.
There's been a lot of interesting comments, well thought out in some cases this evening, depending upon the speakers, meaning no disrespect. One thing I haven't heard this evening at all from anybody is, what is the cost-effective solution for the community when we have to close the Connie Bean in 2 or 3 or 4 years and don't have a place to put that recreational facility? And I know there's a lot of concern about the financial circumstances in the state. It's the same every year, and we worry every year. We've had the faith of our convictions to do some intelligent things in terms of public building in our community that have only served us well. The library, high school, and middle school are good examples of that. They have brought value to our community. And we had to be pretty cognizant of these economic arguments when we voted for the middle school. Is it the right thing to do? It was voted once during a depression. It was voted again during a difficult recession. As far as this Connie Bean facility is concerned, I think Councilor Lister makes a good point. If you keep it simple, it's a gym and a couple of offices, and it has a cost. I haven't heard any councilors here who are so concerned about costs that have any solution whatsoever that is more cost-effective than this compared to what we would have to do in 3, 4, or 5 years if we've got to build a structure. And if we don't build one, that's fine. We just don't have a recreation facility anymore, and our community's had one for over 80 years, and we've had that kind of facility for our youth and adults for over 80 years. So I think we certainly should be mindful of these concerns that we all rightfully have, but I will personally, looking at the amount of money that we would spend from fund balance, given the city manager's recommendations, which are well borne out by our bond rating, I'll take a chance on going a hair under 10% as he recommends in those regards, because we probably need to do it anyway. And I think that it makes sense to build this facility because nobody has a good solution for not building it, or what do we do in 3 or 4 or 5 years? And if we say, well, if we have the will to build it, then, yeah, well, then who's made the wise financial cost or financial decision? If we got to build it in 4 or 5 years and build it on the same spot, it's going to cost a lot more money. So I think that it makes the most sense financially. It's economically in the community's best interest, besides being recreationally in the community's best interest, to build it at this time. Assistant Mayor.
I would like to ask that the motion be amended, that this discussion in the vote be continued till on March 21st, that we actually discuss it again and take the vote on March 21st.
Are you seeking to table it until March 21st?
Yes.
All right. We have a motion to table to March 21st for further discussion. Does anyone care to?
Can I ask a question? For what purposes?
Well, it seems that people would like more time to think about this, to discuss it, to investigate it, to evaluate it, and I've heard a couple of councilors say that they would like to table this till March 21st. So I'm just suggesting that we do that so that we can give it everything it's got.
For the record, and noting the motion, I do believe the omnibus is on for that meeting as well, and that would have some of the additional revenue considerations before us. But I think, Councilor Smith.
Thank you. Just to continue on my point, for the reasons of just so people can deliberate on it.
Well, we're going to need a second if we're going to. If
it's fine, because I'll second it if we can amend it, that this go before the parking committee, and I'll speak to that if I can, if this is.
We have, okay, perhaps it would make sense to have a second, and then perhaps you'd make a.
Second,
for purposes of discussion.
Portsmouth version of tabling.
All right. So we have a second, Councilor Smith.
Thank you. I think the reason you didn't hear any of the councilors have a good reason for why not to do this is because we all realize that youth recreation is important in our community, and we want a youth recreation facility in our community. Some of us are hemming and hawing about, what's the cost of it, and, and what's the right timing for it. I think we all agree that we need the center. My big problem with it is, while yes, it's a cost issue, and can we afford it? We have put in a brand new library, now expanding a middle school in the middle of a neighborhood, and we're giving up public parking spaces for teachers. We don't have a good idea of how the parking situation in that neighborhood is really going to be affected by this. And that's why all I am asking for is for this to go to the parking committee so that we can have an opportunity to really get a handle on how this is going to affect the neighbors, how this is going to affect the parking, how is this going to affect the safety down there. Because, the comment was made, maybe it is the time we start looking at Richards Avenue one way. I don't know. We're going to have to hear from the neighbors out there and find out. But the parking committee did have the opportunity to look at the middle school and how to reroute. Traffic and Safety Committee had an opportunity to how the buses are going to flow around there. We did not have the opportunity to do that same effectiveness with the new Connie Bean Center being added. And all I'm asking for is the opportunity so that it is studied and we can have the right answers for the citizens on how we're handling the parking issue out there.
Councilor Smith, could that be interpreted as a motion to amend?
Yes.
And the motion to amend would be with the understanding, it's a motion to amend the motion to table with the understanding that this would go to the parking committee this week
I have a meeting this week, we'll start it, and if I have to have a special meeting, I will make myself available to do so.
So he makes the motion to amend based on that condition and assumption. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Discussion. Councilor Dwyer.
I know Councilor Smith has the best intentions here and actually is looking for a solution, but just from a precedent standpoint, I want to say this has been to the planning department. It's been through the planning board where there was a full discussion at the planning board of, School Plus. And we have deliberated over the last couple of weeks on a construction management plan with, all hands on deck, probably 15 city staff studying that area and looking at construction management, which of course is also related to parking during the time. And it's been to TAC as well. So in terms of our precedents, I just want to caution us about when we've done TAC, planning department, planning board, and we're at construction management, that it would be rare that we would remand back to parking committee. I have no problems with the parking committee thinking about this, but I am a little concerned about that kind of precedent because I think it puts any developer in a crazy position.
Further discussion.
If I can make comment on that?
Councilor Smith.
Well, I agree with Councilor Dwyer, but we did have the opportunity to see the middle school, but
Sure.
minus the opportunity to have the new Connie Bean. All I'm asking for is the opportunity, if we're going to be adding this to it, that it run through the same process we did for the middle school.
Further discussion? Well, let's call the question on Councilor Smith's motion to amend. Roll call, please.
Mayor Farini?
Opposed?
Oh, sorry, I'm not supposed
No.
to ask you first.
No, you're supposed to ask me last.
I'm sorry. Assistant Manager Kleberg.
But now you know.
Yes.
Councilor Lister?
No.
Councilor Hedgemonic?
Yes.
Councilor Spear?
Yes.
Councilor Dwyer?
No.
Councilor Coviello?
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilor Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Farini?
No.
Passes.
Motion carries. We now go back to the motion in chief, which is a motion to table to the meeting of March 21st. Further discussion. Assistant Mayor Noveline Kleberg.
Councilor Smith, could you have your report back by March 21st for our council meeting on March 21st?
Do our best to.
What did you say?
I'm looking at the city manager to say, to make sure we can schedule it all together.
Depends on what the report will say. I mean, a lot of, as Councilor Dwyer said, a lot of the work has been done. And there has been work done with the assumption of having a second gymnasium. So we'll pull those numbers out. Take a look at them.
Fair statement to say that they'll use best efforts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the work's been done already.
Okay. Councilor Lister.
And I would agree, a lot of the work's been done, and to be honest with you, I can't think of anything more disrespectful than to not take all that into consideration and not take into consideration the expertise of all the department heads and people that worked in that, who, by the way, happen to be sitting in the back of this room. So I just feel as though it's very disrespectful.
Further discussion. So we're now, again, folks, discussion is on the tabling motion till March 22nd. Council Coviello.
Councilor Dwyer made a great point earlier about not being sure what a month is going to get us in terms of information, and I agree that I don't know if a month would be enough, or certainly 2 weeks is going to be much that I'm going to learn much more. Now, certainly the omnibus will help, but so I just don't want to make people under the assumption that we're going to have we're going to know all these answers that I personally have. So I appreciate the motion and I'll support it, but we'll see what happens on the 21st.
Councilor Noveline Kleberg.
I just want to remind
Assistant Mayor.
That's okay. I just want to remind people, it's been stated several times, the reuse of the present Connie Bean Center. You know, if we keep in the back of our minds that would be additional revenue to our city.
Good point.
And I know our city manager estimated $75,000 a year, and I said to him after the meeting the last time, that sounds low to me. I don't know that much about real estate, but I mean, think about that. That's going to be added revenue to our city. And that's a way, and maybe another way that people can think about offsetting the cost is to think that there is revenue. As Council Coviello said, additional revenues that come into our city always help, and that certainly is an added revenue item.
Councilor Spear.
Could we have, I'm going to try to remember as best I can, and if Councilor Dwyer has the dates better, that's fine. But in terms of the deadlines that the council has to make a decision about this gym, there's two deadlines. There's the deadline for the GeoPeers, which I believe is the first week in April, is that correct? And the deadline for the gym itself, which is the first week in May, as I recall.
It's listed in our package as
It's
April 7th.
even listed in our
May
packet.
2nd.
I'll read the packet. What's that? May
Okay,
2nd?
for the record, it's in our package.
Yeah.
We'll try to remember we should probably remember to bring that forward again, depending
So-
upon when this is next discussed.
Right,
again.
that's what
Council.
and that's my point,
So that means our next meeting, is that what you're saying, for council, our 21st meeting,
is when we have to decide at least on the GeoPeers,
for sure?
for sure. And we have another month to cogitate on the full amount, in reality. And so if we do come up on the 21st, and I still have concerns, I'll have no problem voting on the small portion and delaying the larger portion until May. And, but who knows what will happen on the 21st, but that might happen.
Motion practice is, of course, in order at any time. Councilor Coviello.
Just to respond to something the assistant mayor said, and that is, it was a great point about bringing up the potential revenue for the Connie Bean. But I also caution this board and future boards. There's been a history of short-term memory in that regard, and that when the fire station was proposed, the current station's at a new location, the Station 2. One of the ideas at the time was in moving it from a renovated spot to the new spot was that, hey, we'll sell the old property and use that to pay down the debt. Now, at the time, the city manager correctly said you have to, in the future, appropriate that money. Well, the first item that we got and how we were going to pay for this gym was to use the fire station monies. So, I foresee a time 3 or 4 years down the road when we go to lease the Connie Bean and we say, oh, we got $75,000 a year. What should we spend it on? And we'll have forgotten that 2 councils ago or however long that they used that money as leverage in saying, that's how I'm going to justify building this new gym. So,
Further discussion on this motion to table. Councilor Kennedy.
On the GeoPeers, how much would that be total? I know it's in the packet again.
Again, we need a solid bid on that, so I think we have an outside bid in the packet, but at about $280,000, but we need the actual bids, and so we're a couple weeks away from getting the actual.
Yeah. We'll just.
So would you have the bids by the 21st? You think?
I don't know if they will be fully scoped by the 21st. I can tell you that the JBC will be making a decision about the full GMP on April 13th. So for sure by April 13th.
Just how about we use best efforts to make sure that we have what available information there is at the next meeting if we discuss this further, so that Councilor Kennedy will have at least a sense of what the range might be, if that's appropriate.
Call the question.
Call the question. So we'll have a roll call vote on the motion to table.
Assistant Mayor Novelin Kleberg.
Yes.
Councilor Lister.
No.
Councilor Hitchmonick.
Yes.
Councilor Spear.
Yes.
Councilor Dwyer.
No.
Councilor Coviello.
yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Farini.
No.
This is 6-3.
We now move on to the consent agenda. I'm sorry, third and final reading of ordinance, zoning ordinance, Article 7, Section 10.730, Gateway Development, subsection 10.735, Sustainability Standards. Need a motion to pass third and final reading of the proposed zoning ordinance as presented in your package.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. It's unanimous. We move on to the consent agenda, and we have 5 items on the consent agenda this evening. A motion would be in order to adopt the consent agenda after I have read it. If anyone would like to have something removed for separate deliberation, that is their pleasure. Seeing no one seek to do so, I'll start with item A, letter from Sarah Curtin, Seacoast Suicide Prevention Coalition, requesting permission to hold the 7th annual Out of the Darkness Community Walk on Saturday, September 24, 2011. Item B, a letter from D.D. Schreitmuller, The New England Relay requesting permission to hold the 24-hour relay running race on Saturday, June 11, 2011, and Sunday, June 12, 2011. Item C, a letter from Kathy Lynch, President of Portsmouth Little League, requesting permission to place temporary signage at the Plains and Hislop Park baseball fields during the 2011 baseball season and maintain signage to the rear of the Plains scoreboard. Item D, acceptance of donations for the USS Virginia, James L. Colbert, $50, and J.S. and Jean L. Smith, $100. And item E, acceptance of donations for Art Speaks annual appeal, Nicholas and Molly Ferrara, $25, Russ and Katie Grazier, $50, Dennis Moulton and Maureen Gallagher, $50, Diane Cabell, $185, and Peter Michaud, $200. Do we have a motion to accept, to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. It passes unanimously. Item 11, presentation and consideration of written communications and petitions. A letter from Tom and Zelita Morgan regarding the proposal to erect a youth recreation facility on Alumni Field. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Well, what would the motion, what would the requested action be?
To accept and place on file.
Moved to accept and place on file. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Just for the record, I'm going to be bringing that letter because it does bring parking to the parking committee.
Noted for the record. Councilor Smith, thank you. Councilor Coviello.
Just like to comment. I've tried to make it a personal habit to comment when we do this stuff, so people feel that we're just not ignoring it. I think it was discussed a lot in tonight's conversation.
Noted for the record as well. Thank you, Councilor Coviello. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, it's unanimous. Item B, a letter from Attorney Peter Laughlin regarding connector roadway, Lang Road to Long Meadow Road. Does anyone care to make a motion?
Move to the planning board for report back.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor, and thank you, Councilor Lister and Councilors Hitmonic and Lister. If that's who indeed made the motion, I think he did. Discussion. Councilor Smith.
Thank you. When it goes to the planning board, just one comment that I had on it when we had looked at this at traffic and safety, if I remember correctly, on the lot across the street, that was going to be the snow storage, which means if that's the case, they'd have to be crossing a city street to have snow storage on the other side. So the planning board could please look at that to see if that's what they want to happen at that time. And if so, maybe a legal agreements would have to be in place to be able to do snow storage on the opposite side of the road.
Just note that for the record. If council's comfortable with that, we won't go with any formal motion practice in that regard. Any further discussion? You did leave out a motorcycle pad on that, too, did you?
Yes,
not?
I did.
Sorry. All right.
Many years off.
Any planning board veterans will remember that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, it's unanimous. Item C, a letter from Paul Mahoney regarding labor unions rally held on Saturday in Market Square. Do we have a motion?
Motion to place on file and send a copy to the Fire Commission.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, it's unanimous. Item 12, reports and communications from city officials. City manager, item 1.
Thank you, Your Honor. Coming back tonight for approval of this, for the City Council of the pilot program for use of property for outdoor seating for alcoholic services. We did provide the City Council with an outline. We did talk about it at the last meeting and would recommend, the staff and I would recommend that we proceed with this pilot program for Pesce Restaurant and to commence on or about April 15th. One of the things I would say is that there is a possibility that Pesce Restaurant may change ownership. That's possible. And if it does, I would then advise the City Council if that happened and bring it to your attention. But the idea would be to keep the same type of pilot program in place. In addition, I am talking to other businesses downtown that have similar interests, and we're going to start collecting names of those that have interests and look at their locations and see how we might evaluate those, and at some point either have one, after we see how this particular pilot program goes, we'll have evaluated other businesses that may have made inquiries with a similar type of request so that we could be ready to act on those as well. That would be my recommendation, to accept the proposal as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Council Coviello.
John, this question may be premature, and if you want to wait until you get an evaluation, that's fine. What happens in a situation where adjacent restaurants are competing for the same spot? Is it a bidding thing, or?
Well, that's why this actually won't be a problem at this particular time. But that's a good question. That's why on all these things we want to go slow. And the one thing that I think you're going to have is access from inside your restaurant out, so that you're not going to be able to traverse over public property with alcohol. So, for example, you're not going to be able to go out your door 10 feet across a sidewalk into an enclosed area. The Liquor Commission won't allow that, is my understanding.
Okay.
So you're going to have to actually leave your building, and you're going to have the more or less enclosure there.
Okay, thanks.
I just have I will maintain the gavel, but if it turns into a discussion, I'll pass it to the Assistant Mayor. Just a question for the City Manager. It doesn't, and perhaps I missed it, but one of the things that I recall in our discussion was a possibility that a small number of additional venues might be possible, and you know, the way it's termed in here, it indicates if the 2011 pilot is successful. I do recall discussion that we would consider perhaps an interim report wherein we would have some information back at an opportunity for businesses to consider being able to do it as part of the pilot study this summer. The report back doesn't appear to mention that, and I don't want to engage in motion practice on the issue. I'm just raising the issue if other councilors care to speak about it.
Well,
but I'd be curious as to why we don't have a date of a report back so that businesses that want to have an involvement in the pilot program would have some advance notice about when such a report back might be and when such involvement might occur.
Well, if I might, Your Honor, like anything else, the council can ask for a report back whenever it wants. That's number one. Number two, we'd like to at least get into the operation a little bit to see what's happening. And if it seems like it's going very smooth, we may come back to the council and say, we'll entertain two more opportunities. So that's the whole intent of the pilot program. I'd hate to set a time certain on a report back until actually I have some experience there. That's kind of the idea of a pilot program, because it wouldn't then be called a pilot program. It probably would be,
a bigger pilot program.
Yeah, it'd be a policy.
All right, fair enough.
That's kind of, but I've heard you, and I've heard that if it seems like by May or June that things seem to be working very well, we'll come back and let the council know what's working well and what our concerns are in some areas, and if there are a couple other places out there, we'll collect. What we're going to need to do is we're going to need to go out and see. There might be some places that just won't make sense to have it there. So we're going to be in the process of collecting those names of businesses that are interested in it.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the pilot project? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Passes unanimously. Item 2.
The next item is proposed lease of the South Meeting House by the Portsmouth Public Media. At your last meeting, we had a detailed presentation by David Underhill from Portsmouth Public Media, along with Suzanne Woodland, the Assistant City Attorney, regarding the lease. We also have here tonight, we have Jack Thorson, who is representing PPM tonight, and we do have Suzanne Woodland, the Assistant City Attorney, here. My recommendation is that the City Council approve the proposed lease between the City of Portsmouth and Portsmouth Public Media and authorize the City Manager to execute the necessary documents.
So moved.
We have a motion. We have a second. Discussion.
Your Honor, could I make one thing clear?
City Attorney.
There will be some minor adjustments perhaps necessary in the document in the form it's been presented to the council. Just small issues, nothing of substance.
Thank you. Noted for the record, Councilor Dwyer.
It's really just a question, and that is, I know that they needed this lease before going to Comcast, and I just wondered, to see if this would be an appropriate building, what the timing might be like on that.
Your Honor, I'd asked if the City Council could suspend the rules to allow Jack Thornton to come forward.
We have a motion to suspend.
So moved.
Council Smith has made the motion. Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. It's unanimous. Welcome, Jack Thorson.
Thank you. Jack Thorson, President of the Board of PPM. The question?
The question is, Because I know once you have the lease, you needed this, our approval of a lease before you could work with Comcast to scope out the viability of this place for, at least that's what I understood. So I wondered how long that process is going to take in terms of what they've told you before you can then move forward with the lease.
Yes, thank you. We believe that the process is no more than 30 days.
Okay.
It's a very short period of time. If it extends longer than that, we'll certainly be letting people know. But we've already started the process and had a response back from Comcast saying that they're looking at the arrangement and will be getting back to us with a quotation very soon.
Okay, great.
Any other questions for Jack? Thanks, Jack. Thanks for your hard work. So we're now back in the discussion of the motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. It passes unanimously. Item 3.
Thank you, Your Honor. Next item deals with the report back regarding 54 Rogers Street. In your packet, there is a report back from the City Council, the City Attorney, and I'd ask him to speak to the issue. The ultimate recommendation is to send this back to the Planning Board for a recommendation for lot line relocation, but the City Attorney has provided you with a memorandum for the report back.
City Attorney.
The council has about 15 pages of stuff in their agenda tonight. On this issue, I'm going to try to really give the Reader's Digest version. There's an area of about 7 feet wide in dispute in terms of ownership between the middle school property and the property of Mr. Hess and Ms. Donovan, which is located immediately adjacent on Rogers Street. The property in dispute is located on what you would consider to be the Hess-Donovan side of the fence behind the middle school. I have met with Mr. Hess and his attorney on more than one occasion in attempts to try to find ways to resolve this dispute. And after a number of meetings, we have agreed that perhaps the best way to resolve the dispute from among all the options that we're able to think of is for Mr. Hess, with the approval of the City Council, to request that the Planning Board approve relocating the lot line from where the city believes it is now to the fence located behind the middle school. If the council would vote as recommended in the agenda tonight, to allow this matter to be referred to the Planning Board to consider the lot line relocation, then the Planning Board can conduct a full inquiry, determine, for example, whether there are any issues related to the middle school project that have a bearing on this decision. And what would happen in that case is, if the Planning Board determines that the lot line should be relocated, the Planning Board can, A, attach whatever conditions it deems to be reasonable in connection with that relocation, and B, send the matter back to the City Council, because the authority to actually relocate the lot line, authorize the manager to execute the deed that would be necessary to accomplish that, that authority only lies with the City Council. So what I'm suggesting is that the council authorize the matter to be referred to the Planning Board, knowing that in any event, the issue would come back here before any final action is taken.
So moved.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Discussion. Councilor Dwyer.
This may be in the form of an amendment, but I would want the Planning Board, I'm sure they would do this anyway, the Planning Board, the Planning Department to, and the Planning Board to consult with the JBC in making their determination, because this area will be actively involved very soon in our construction work. I'm not saying that the school is going to be built on that, but we're replacing the fence, for example. So there are a lot of considerations that I want to make sure that nothing that, would happen would, because this would be a gift, essentially. Nothing would happen that would jeopardize anything that the middle school would be doing. So I want to make sure that the planning department, as it comes back to the City Council, has consulted with the JBC on that.
Okay. That is not a motion.
That's an amendment.
But
it's a motion to amend.
Your Honor, if I might, I can just have the planning department work with.
Right. I just
all right. Then we won't have it be a formal amendment.
I'm sure they would.
Yeah, and I'll do that.
All right. If you're comfortable with that just being an admonition as opposed to amendment, we'll leave it at that. Council Coviello.
I just have a question. I didn't want it to go unchallenged. I didn't read that it was proposing a gift. It sounds like it was going to be a conversation and negotiation.
You are correct.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, passes unanimously. Item 4.
The next item, Your Honor, deals with poll license, attaches request for poll license from PSNH. The request is to license one pole located at Northwest Street that needs to be replaced. PSNH could not find its existing license for the pole at this location, is requesting one at this time. The pole does not have any impact on existing city infrastructure, and the Public Works Department is recommending the approval of this license.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Discussion?
Your Honor,
Hearing.
I have a
Yeah, Councilor Spear.
and this might
This
be
may be a
for
first.
the city attorney.
Poll license, please proceed.
We have these every so often, and every once in a while you read we can sometimes tax, sometimes not tax the various parts of the poll. Do we have any? Why are we even doing this? Can't they just do it anyway? I mean, why are we voting on this? Can they?
Well, we want to license the polls. We want to.
We said no.
That's fine. They can't. They wouldn't be able to put the poll in.
Wait, what?
They wouldn't be able to put the poll in.
Then can we? Really?
Right.
So we can do that.
Yeah.
We can put it on the ground.
Yeah. Well, a few years ago, there was a council that was upset because some polls were not removed. So until certain polls that were unused were removed, the council did not vote for any new licenses.
Very nice. All right. Thank you.
Sufficiently exciting for everyone? Okay, that's great. All right. Any more discussion on the poll license? This one, anyway. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. It's unanimous. Item 5.
The next item, a report back regarding the regulation of synthetic marijuana, or what is commonly referred to as K2. I'll ask the city attorney to speak to.
On February 7th, the council requested a report concerning this topic with the assistance of my intern, Jim Nukas, who did a tremendous amount of good work on this. We've quite thoroughly investigated the matter of K2 and provided you with a detailed opinion. In summary, what it comes down to is this. K2 is a material that's taken when THC, the active component of marijuana, is sprayed on what I understand to be any other kind of inert vegetative matter. It is sold as incense, but not necessarily used as incense. I called the police chief in Franklin, New Hampshire, who's very much involved in this, and he described it to me in a lot of detail, and he said that individuals who use this as an artificial marijuana, he said, become very disoriented. He says it said to cause internal problems with organs and allegations of heart attacks and bad stuff comes from it. Now, as a result of that, in addition to the city council here and the city council in Franklin becoming interested in K2, the federal government is interested in listing it as a controlled drug, as is the state legislature. With those thoughts in mind, the idea that the city of Portsmouth might regulate it, I think runs into this basic stumbling block. As the council knows from innumerable past issues, the most basic statement of municipal law in the state of New Hampshire is that cities and towns have only that authority which is granted to them by the legislature. Mr. Nukas and I looked for legislation authorizing the city to regulate K2, and we certainly found nothing direct. In exigent circumstances, we did find maybe indirect pathways to get there, but given the fact that the federal government is about to regulate this stuff, or may have even regulated as of last week, and the state legislature is actively considering K2 right now, we felt that the better action for the city council to take, rather than to adopt an ordinance based upon somewhat speculative enabling legislation, we thought the better move for the city council would be to simply step back and wait and see what the state and federal government do. One thing that might happen is that the state legislature might provide the enabling legislation so that it was clear, or the state legislature might itself make K2 illegal. You'll note in the Franklin ordinance that was provided to you that Franklin actually says if the state makes this stuff illegal, then the Franklin ordinance becomes null and void. Now, if Franklin feels that way, then in the posture that we're in now, I recommend that City of Portsmouth simply wait and see what happens with K2 on a state and federal level before taking any action.
Thank you for that explanation. We would need some sort of motion or take some action on
My
this.
recommendation would simply be to accept this report, place it on file.
Well, we could
I would just
consider,
add to that, Your Honor, and to have this being tracked by the Legislative Subcommittee of the City Council.
I'll make the motion, and then I'll speak to it.
okay, well, make a motion presumably to refer it to the City Council Legislative Subcommittee for discussion with the legislation. Is that
Yes,
your
and
intent?
to accept the report.
All right, we have a
Second.
motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion, Council Smith.
Thank you. I was somewhat shocked to find out recently that this did go before the New Hampshire representatives in their committee, and they voted not to take action on this. But of course, we have one thing that happens in Concord doesn't
Right.
matter. It's every bill still comes up for vote. So hopefully, better minds will prevail and we'll get this issue resolved. I have also recently heard on the news that the FDA has banned this stuff. So hopefully, we have some tracking to come down. My big concern, and why I brought this up, is that right now, anyone can buy it, and it's in our schools. In speaking to a couple of firemen, I have heard that there has been even ambulance calls that have come out from this. It doesn't surprise me, the information that we've received from the police chief of Franklin, the city of Franklin, New Hampshire. And I hope we can continue to watch this. I know I will, because I sit on that committee, and hopefully we can get something done on this quickly. But meanwhile, if the public is aware of this, and just beware.
Thanks, Council Smith. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. And so we do have a preferred action at this point. It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? It's unanimous.
That's all I have, Your Honor, other than what I have under informational items, event listings, and continued donations to the African Burying Ground.
Thank you. We'll just move on to the mayor's portion of the agenda. A few items for your consideration. The first is a letter of resignation from Betsy Schultes, longstanding servant of our city. And,
Move to accept with regrets with a letter to thank her for service.
Thanks, Councilor Smith. Do we have a second discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? It's unanimous. We have assembled the questions for the fiscal year 12 budget. I'll put out one last shout out for people who want to give them to us. If not, we will be compiling them and getting them out, but I'll make sure that councilors have an opportunity to see them in the first instance, and I hope to do that within a week or so at the very least, so that you'll have them and they'll be able to go out in a timely fashion. One other item, we did receive, as you know, and I'm just bringing this up now, I would not be surprised if others brought it up, so I'll just do that in this instance. We did receive a copy of a Portsmouth Fire Department General Order 1101, effective March 3rd, 2011, regarding minimum staffing for all shifts with respect to ambulance service and how that will work. And I, under the heading of taking the council's temperature, it would be my suggestion that we have on the agenda at the next city council meeting the Fire Commission, so that we can inquire as to the nature, extent, and impact of how this would work, when it would work, how many calls it involves, et cetera, et cetera. And I presume many of you will have questions in that regard. So with your okay, I will seek to put that on the agenda at the next meeting, and we will invite the Fire Commission to attend.
Mayor?
Yes.
And included in that, because we do review the budgets every month, and I didn't really see this shortfall in the most recent month's budget, but I understand that there's a lot of information that, the chief will know that, and the commission, that we wouldn't necessarily see in a retrospective reporting. I'd like to know in that the basis of the expectation of shortfall.
Well, I think that it should be expected, and when we extend the invitation to the Fire Commission, we will obviously want to have a full quantitative understanding of how this is intended and what it means, and we'll have an opportunity to have those materials hopefully in our packet prior to the meeting so that we can inquire in a detailed fashion. Councilor Spear.
At the March 21st meeting, we're voting on the CIP. Is that?
Yes, it is.
And is that the time when we offer amendments to the CIP? And so if I have any, would I just bring them to you ahead of time so they're properly worded and vetted and all that?
Sure.
Yeah, it'd be helpful. I want to be helpful, so.
Thank you, Councilor Spear, for bringing that up. Typically, the way we do it is these kinds of things do occur with the CIP, and we kind of go point by point from a procedural perspective when we're doing it, so it's expected, and, please bring those items forward, and we'll get to the final product if we're able to. Councilor Dwyer.
Can I ask for a clarification on that? Should we only be focusing on this current year, or should we be looking at out years? I mean, does it make sense to only look at this year?
I would recommend that you look at this year, and unless there's a program you want to just eliminate,
Okay.
But because we did recalculate a lot of things to address some of the debt service. So this fiscal year would probably, fiscal 12, I should say, would be what would be best to concentrate on.
In the event it's a yearly program or something, then obviously it becomes part of the discussion. But if it's what's item, an item in out year, fiscal 16, then, Councilor Smith.
Thank you. I meant to bring this up at the end of the city manager's comment, but I'll ask a question now.
Sure.
If the city manager could just take a look at, on the budgets, where the gasoline prices have been spiking up so much over the last couple of weeks. Just want to know how that is affecting our budgets, our current budgets, because in case we start getting other departments that are going to request supplemental funds,
Well,
if they do.
I wouldn't offer that.
Have you
it's something. It's something that we're going to have to. We're going to be evaluating, and we're going to. And I'm going to be. My first instance is try to make it up within the existing budgets.
Are you starting to see the effects of it in the spikes?
Not right now. We have. I'll have to check with Steve, but we do get deliveries, and it will probably start affecting us.
So I'm assuming we're starting to get to now that we're getting into the warmer months, our fuel costs for the heating the buildings won't be affected, but obviously with police cars and fire trucks and all the other vehicles we have in the city, it could be affecting budgets.
Council Coviello. I am officially done with my portion of the agenda. No, that's okay. And so miscellaneous unfinished business, et cetera, please proceed. I meant to say that before.
And I'm sorry, I don't want to steal the assistant mayor's thunder if she was going to bring it up. I just wanted to remind the 10th is our Charter Commission meeting.
Right.
And please.
And I invite councilors to give us suggestions. I have heard from one councilor, Councilor Spear, and that's all. So if you have any suggestions, please get them to me or Councilor Coviello.
Great. Noted for the record. Please get those questions to the assistant mayor. Any other issues to be brought up this evening under miscellaneous unfinished business or the like? Then the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, hearing none. All in favor? None opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you and good night.